Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back to Bill Michaels Show. We are live. We are here inside the Convention Center, Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are so glad that you are with us today. As always, we certainly appreciate you being here. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Pella Windows. Go to PellaWI.com. That is PellaWI.com. Whether it's new windows, doors, entryways, whatever it happens to be, they have got you covered, and they have something for everybody in different lines, different hardware, interior, for your style, for your tastes, to add value to your home, security to your home, curb appeal, whatever it happens to be, they've got you covered. And the best part about it is they keep the heat out, or keep the heat in the wintertime, but keep the heat out in the summertime. And they work so well. The security and the safety factor, and then having them professionally installed by the Pella installers. And the best part about it is right now, 0% financing. They have different lines to fit your budget, but 0% financing right now. All you got to do is call and get the free in-home estimate. And they can come out and tell you what you do need, you don't need, all that kind of good stuff, and they give you different choices. It's just a great experience. Do what I did, and that's called Pella. Go to PellaWI.com. That's PellaWI.com, or call them 855-PELLA-WI. That's 855-PELLA-WI. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. And good to have everybody on board and everybody back. I think the stream is back. It's good. So, knock on wood that it stays that way. Like I said, we've had a little bit of a, when you do stuff like this and you have a mass group of people that are trying to get internet, and it's not the same size scale, we'll say, as what Super Bowl is. So when you have this, sometimes you have a couple of internet glitches along the way. And it's not us. It's usually something along the way where they've, laid some wires or whatever. But nevertheless, it seems like things are better. So knock on wood that it remains that way. So as long as you can hear us and you can find us on the different streams, we're all good. It's all fantastic. Out of the 920, I got a text message that said, "Hey, Bill, on a previous show, you would stress the importance for the Packers to win the division. It seemed like fans might not know or remember the longest stretch where the Packers did not win the division. If the Packers fail to win the division this season, it's going to be the longest stretch of time the Packers have failed to win the division since the 70s and the 80s, which lasted from 1972 through 73, the season until 1995 to 96. Remember, it would be disappointing if the streak of not winning the division continues beyond this season, and that is Michael in Minneapolis. And I was talking about that with Jeff Joniak, the voice of the Bears, earlier today, about how tough the division has gotten, where the Lions have kind of ascended to, even though they took a step back this year. Certainly, there's a lot of uncertainty about where the Bears are, and he agreed with me. He's like, look, you can't count on those come-from-behind wins, and you can't count on all those turnovers again. You gotta make sure that you're now a team that is very competitive, because they were behind in a lot of those games. They got magic in a lot of those games, but they learned how to win. And I said that before. That was the one thing about the Bears in their season, is they learned how to win. And once you do that, if you get better players, well, then you can do nothing but ascend. But we'll see if they take a step back. And obviously the Packers are still a good football team, and they're going to get some health back. And we'll just wait and see what happens in Minneapolis with J.J. McCarthy. But the cool thing about being here, and I said this before during the last segment, is we're going to get a chance to talk to all these guys. We'll talk to Paul Allen. We'll talk to Jeff Joniak. We'll try to find Dan Miller and see if he's floating around here somewhere, and maybe get a chance to talk with him and talk to these guys that are in the NFC North throughout the week. Plus, not only those guys, but then the others. I mean, there's an interest. Our friends from Pittsburgh, talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, and talk about the new head coach Mike McCarthy and that familiarity. And then plus all the people that are here that actually cover the Packers on a daily. But yeah, it's why I love this place. And then whatever happens to be floated out there, because you start to see guys last night walking the streets, and you see guys, around St. Elmo's, and you see them over at Tony's, and, the cigar, lounges and stuff. There's Rocky Patel Burn, and then there's Nicky Blaine's. Nicky Blaine's where we go. And you head down there, and guys get a bourbon or two in them, and they're talking, and suddenly loose lips. And it's where we found out last year that Deebo Samuel was going to be traded. Well, the deal was kind of started or done or whatever, culminated here, and then you found out about it after the fact. But you have all that we kind of were on top of last year, and it's just because they're like I've said before, this is kind of like the Christmas catalog that's come to life for the general managers. They have their wish lists, and they get to look at everybody, and they get to say, okay, this guy, that you'd love to have all these things, all these toys, but you can't have them all. So you got to try to find the best one that's going to suit you and fit your needs and fit into your team and your culture and all that kind of stuff. And that's what you're looking for. That's why they all come here, is to get a look at that. And so it's an exciting time, because the season's over. You're starting. You haven't really gotten together on 2026 yet, and guys kind of let their hair down a little bit. So that's what we're kind of hoping for this week again. As a matter of fact, again, I got not an advertisement. Got a email here. This one's from Katie. Katie says, "Hey guys, enjoy Indianapolis. I love the town. Originally from a little town called Rushville. Rushville is actually where I got my start in radio, Katie. As a matter of fact, WRCR in Rushville, Indiana, years ago. Not even there anymore. It's the home of what NASCAR driver was well known in Rushville, Indiana. If you know that, Katie, email me. Let me know. Says that looking for the Colts to get better this year. What do you think they're going to do with Richardson? Katie, first of all, I'm glad you're listening to us, but the fact that you're a Colts fan listening to a show in Wisconsin that talks more Packers than anything, that's a little interesting. But I think Richardson's going to have a shot at maybe earning his job back. But we'll wait and see. I think it's going to be an open competition, because remember, Daniel Jones blew out the Achilles. So he's not going to be back right away. So they're going to give Richardson an opportunity. But everything that you've heard about Richardson has not necessarily been good, because of, I guess, for lack of a better term, his work ethic or his commitment to work ethic. So he's got talent, but it's incredibly raw talent. And I think that if they can find somebody else, they'll find somebody else. They gave him some opportunities, and he's coming back from that busted orbital socket in his eye where he got hit with a football last year during warmups, and then he was out the remainder of the season. But I think he's going to get an opportunity, but I don't know necessarily that he is their starter coming into the season. I know there was a lot of hype for him when they picked him. I know after his first season, there was a lot of hype for him, and he just never has panned out. And then what you hear about him behind the scenes is not that great. So, but I appreciate you listening to us and your hometown of Rushville, Indiana. I haven't been back there in a while, but I know it's grown up. That's for sure. Because the old sitting outside, not outside, but by the corner window in the studio there, when people from the outside could just come up to the studio window and look inside and see us doing the police reports and, drawing the names for the peanut butter parfaits at Dairy Queen. That's where I got my start, man, back in 1992. In WRCR in Rushville, Indiana. Katie, that's a great memory. Appreciate it. This was from Jim. Jim says, what are you going to find out about Rasheed Walker and some of the other guys that are going to be out there for the Packers? How likely is it that Goody's going to let it slip that some of these guys are just not going to be with the team anymore? He's not, because you're not going to play your hand. You're either going to let people know that maybe this is a guy you want to retain. So if they want to offer you something, you're not going to come out and just say, no, we're ready to get rid of this guy. But you're also not going to commit to him coming back either. The one thing about Brian Gutekunst is he doesn't lie. Brian doesn't lie. Again, sometimes, and I say this all the time, when people roll their eyes and go, oh, God, we got to listen to him speak. Listen, because sometimes not only is it what you hear, it's what you don't hear. You don't hear commitment to somebody. You don't hear that somebody's going to be back. You don't hear whether they are or aren't going to make the specific trade. You don't hear philosophically what it is they do or don't want to do. So sometimes you listen and you kind of say, okay, he's not saying a whole lot. But then when he gets a specific question and he won't answer it, he's not going to lie to you, but he's also not going to answer it. And you kind of go, okay, what can I infer from that? So it's sometimes what you don't hear sometimes speaks louder than what you do hear. So that's why I'm always interested in this kind of stuff. That's why you're always interested in talking to a general manager, asking them a question, even though it may be coach speak or GM speak or whatever, and people get upset about it, like, why are you playing this? Well, here's the reason why. Because when he was asked a specific question about this specific player, there was no commitment there. What does that tell you? Or there was no discussion about it. He goes on to somebody else. Well, we like all our guys. We like all our players. And then he goes on to talking about somebody else in that particular realm that they really like and they're high on. And, hey, it's really come along. And this guy's going to give us depth and blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, but he never answered the question about the guy you had a specific question about. That'll probably tell you that he's not going to be around. That there's a good likelihood that if he doesn't come to some type of an agreement or they just don't want him, he's not going to be a Green Bay Packer anymore. So that's what you listen for. That's what you listen for. Steve, you are 100% correct. Steve had it right. Who was a well-known NASCAR driver that came out of Rushville, Indiana? It was Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart was named the Rushville Rocket. He was named the Rushville Rocket back in the day. Back when I was working in Rushville, Indiana, 1992. Tony Stewart, the Rushville Rocket. You're absolutely correct, man. That's fantastic. That's great stuff. Appreciate it. 877-867-1670. Give us a shout again, 877-867-1670. You can find us there. And in addition to that, we're going to be, I think Grant's going to be bringing somebody over here in just a little bit. He was just kind of waving to me down the way. So Grant's probably going to be bringing somebody in to join us on the program here at some point. What else do we have here? And Tony and Joe, and there's a few others over in the live stream that you were right. You were 100% correct. It's Tony Stewart, the Rushville Rocket. The Rushville Rocket. Let's do this. We're going to step out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. And then when we do, we'll see who joins us here at the table. Like I said, we got quite a few people floating around right now. The problem is, not necessarily the problem, but the reason we don't have anybody sitting here is because a lot of the guys that are from Wisconsin that want to come on the program or will come on the program are listening right now to John Eric Sullivan from the Miami Dolphins, former lead scout for Brian Gutekunst and company for the Packers. And then right after that, Jeff Hafley is speaking. So that's where everybody's at right now. So that's the reason that we don't have, a group of people sitting here at the table. And like I said, Sam Brucchaus is going to be a little bit later on today. And then after Goody speaks, Mike Clemens will be here. And then in addition to that, Bill Huber's going to be here today as well. All right, let's do this. We'll step out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. This portion of our program brought to you by our good friends over there at Robert's Specialty Meats in Waukesha. And Robert's is fantastic. I mean, whether you're going for the ribs on a stick, you're going for the Wagyu beef steaks, just big, thick New York strips, whatever it happens to be, they got something for everybody. They've got the brats. They've got the custom-made brats and sausages there. They've got the garlic parm chicken skewers, plus a lot of deli stuff that is made right here from products in the state of Wisconsin. And I've told you this before, and I didn't realize it until I went down there just before Christmas. They got great seafood as well. I didn't know they got scallops flown in. They got Alaskan king crab's legs flown in. They have that there as well. Awesome, awesome stuff. Check out our friends over there at Robert's Specialty Meats Waukesha on Sunset Drive in Waukesha. Again, Robert's Specialty Meats Waukesha.com. That's Robert's Specialty Meats Waukesha.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this, live down here in Indianapolis, inside the Convention Center for the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back to the program. We are live. We are here inside the Convention Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. This portion of our program brought to you by German Fest. We all know that once the weather breaks up in Wisconsin, we can't wait to get out and start festing. July 25th, 26th, and 27th. Go to GermanFest.com for tickets, information, freebies, all that kind of good stuff. German Fest 2026 on July 25th, 26th, and 27th. Go to GermanFest.com. It's a Milwaukee tradition. That is GermanFest.com. Hanging out over here at the table, we always get, good guests and people that happen to swing by, and our friends from Sumer Sports always very gracious to come over and say hello to us. Quinn McLean from Sumer Sports joining us here. First of all, thanks for coming over, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This, for a guy that does all the analytics, this is kind of like, kids in a candy store for you, right?
Yeah. And it's almost crazy that the Combine has evolved as much as it has, because from a data perspective, we just received the file at the end of the events and put it into our models and start to separate from that. But I think there's cool storylines that you see every single years of guys opting into the Combine and trying to improve their draft position versus not. And we also look at that data as well as guys that are trying to, the uncertainty around the draft of trying to rise and hopefully not fall.
Right. So let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. Prime example of a guy that everybody thought he was going to be a first rounder, thought he could be the first overall pick, ends up going, fifth round? Yeah. By the time it was all said and done, didn't get a chance to start not once, not twice, until the second quarterback didn't work out. And then they said, let's give you a shot. And he was okay. He wasn't great. So give me Shedeur Sanders and what happened to him last year.
Yeah, I think you really get into the mock draft that we have is very uncertain at this point in the season. And so when you're looking into the Combine and trying to project a guy, like obviously there's some big names from college that you're, Heisman Trophy winners that you're trying to project or Heisman Trophy candidates. But like the mock draft has some signal as far as how good a player is. And that's a guy that was mock top 10, but like very low signal from that. And I think what the public doesn't realize is a lot of these NFL teams have already had their draft meetings going into the Combine.
Right.
So they're just like nudging a guy up the draft board. They're not shooting him up per se. What's shooting a guy up is the mock draft information from public insiders.
Right.
That they're finally starting to release some of that behind the scenes scouting information to the public.
Yeah.
And so I think with Shedeur, you saw a lot of close to the vest of behind the scenes scouting information that wasn't released that the public never caught up on.
Right.
And I think it's an interesting tale of why the mock drafts is so uncertain and why you have to look at a specific people who have a little bit more insider information.
I pride myself on the eyeball test, watching a guy throughout the season. I don't get a chance to watch every college game, but we saw enough of Shedeur, and I said, very athletic, throws a lot of quick outs, can scramble and make some things happen downfield, but not as accurate as you would want and not as great a footwork as you would want in the pocket. Very a raw guy. So when they kept saying he was going to be a top 5, top 10, and Deion's telling us that he's going to be the best pick, and I'm like, I don't see that at all. And the film doesn't lie.
Yeah, and one thing we can look at from analytics measure and for Shedeur is we look at completion percentage over expectation. And so what we do from our data is we look at the proximity of the players on the field. If you watch a lot of Colorado film, there are a lot of guys throwing on into slants in space, and so he's getting a lot of manufactured yards from his accuracy, which makes his accuracy numbers from a raw perspective look good. But the receivers, if we remember them, they were super fast. Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, that's now with the Panthers. Like, those are speedster that he can just dump it off to and look into space. We see Brock Purdy have that same effect in the NFL. It's like, find your window, let the athletes do the rest of the work. And that was, I think, it's hard from a guy like Shadur to be successful. The other thing from an analytics measure that we knew was going to struggle for them is he just, in high pressure situations where the edge rushers were barreling in on him, he just took a lot of sacks. And that's like an NFL indicator that we in the data community can see as the most predictive of success is when you're pressured, are you able to evade that sack from a scramble perspective, getting the ball off? And that's something he really struggled in college minor league.
That shifts me into Jordan Love. Jordan Love this year, one of the best quarterbacks in the pocket. I mean, when he didn't have pressure in his face, he was going to chew you up, spit you out. Still really good with pressure. Not as good, which no quarterback is as good, but give me your thoughts on Love and where he stands right now.
Yeah, I just pulled up our analytics dashboard here, and I can kind of walk you through some of it, but I think the data kind of shows this perfectly for Jordan Love in 2025. And so accuracy under pressure, we have him as a mismatch. Like, we think he's a liability in that. But poise, in terms of staying in the pocket and getting a pass off while getting hit, he's excellent in that. And so I think it's like, his barometer when that pocket is closing in, I think he gets a little bit rushed until the last minute he gets the pass off. I think if he was more to set the protections and pre-snap and anticipate that pressure a little bit more, he'd improve a little bit as a passer. The other thing for him is, like, we think he's really good in terms of his touch on the ball. So getting receivers open and trying that. But, like, he's got to anticipate the pressure pre-snap to plan for the whole sequence of the plays. I think he's reacting to what the defenses is and playing hero ball.
Not being proactive, he's being more reactive.
Yeah, he's playing hero ball. It's not like sustainable for him.
Yeah, and that was one of the things we had talked about. Like, if he gets and when we say pressure, I don't mean like here comes the blitz. I mean like when the pocket starts to collapse or one side isn't getting the protection and he's starting to move on the run. He's a pretty good quarterback, but if he doesn't see that pressure coming, he's a guy that can be off the mark, and his completion percentage drops dramatically.
Yeah, we have him as a 6 in our Sumer traits is gets the job done in terms of accuracy on the move, and that's design move type thing. So it's like if it's not designed or he's not reactive to it, I think he falls apart a little bit. But I think there's play calling that can help him out in terms of the pressure to make that easier for him.
We all know that there's these levels, these tiers of quarterbacks in the National Football League, and this year Matthew Stafford was the gold standard. We know a guy like Josh Allen has always been up there. Lamar Jackson's won some MVPs and such. Where in this tier would you put Jordan Love? Is he just below that? Or is he, because I've always said there's the excellent quarterback that could be on their way to a Hall of Fame career. Then there's really good quarterbacks that haven't taken that next step. Then they're good. Then you got your below average, and it goes down from there.
I'd say he's good to impact, and I think there's some things that the Packers can do to draft to help him out a little bit. The offensive line, I think, is something that people have talked about for a little bit. You put some younger people in the offensive line, I think, in terms of setting protection, so that his blinder is that he's not doing well pre-snap by having some talented offensive linemen. I think you can help him get into that impact player where create those explosive plays, that improv type of playmaking. Right.
Tell me about Caleb Williams. He had a hell of a season this past year. I was talking with Jeff Joniak, who's the voice of the Bears earlier, and Jeff was telling me, kind of saying the same thing. It's like it's tough to translate and take over from one year to the next, the turnovers and the magic.
Yep.
You got to get good. Now you've learned how to win. Now you got to get good. What does Caleb Williams show you that says he took a big leap? Or maybe he didn't. I mean, he took a big leap, obviously, in accuracy and late, game comebacks. But what does he need to do to be a better quarterback that, has that ability to be able to do that to make that team that much even better?
Similar storyline to what we just talked about with Shadur. He took a lot of sacks in college, and I think he was looking at DBs be like, I have the better arm than you. I'm going to throw it, and you try to make the play on that. Yeah. There's a lot of film plays from his days at USC that he just threw over a defensive back because he's like, I'm more talented than you. Right. We saw that show up in his rookie year where it's now you've got talent of that. Now you got to adjust. I think that's still an area that hopefully Ben Johnson, as to the second year working together, he improves in that. In our decision-making metric, he's still a liability, but in terms of our sack avoidance, we have him as an impact player. So I think trending in the right direction, like evading the pressure, but now you got to make the smart decisions, the most optimal plays.
Obviously, you've got really good quarterback play in Detroit. You don't necessarily worry about that, but the Lions themselves struggled this year. I think mainly when you look at the offensive line, right when Ragnow retired, and then tried to come back and wasn't able to because of the physical, they really had a void in the middle, which I think also was the Packers' issue. Packers tried to move Elton Jenkins down, didn't work out. They bring in Sean Ryan, not your prototypical center. They, like you had said, they need to mix and match their offensive line a little bit. I think they had offensive line issues in Detroit.
Yeah, and I think it's a new system in terms of offensive play callers. They had two different play callers that year that I think when you're trying to set protection schedules of a new play caller, I think that can be difficult. Although Jared Goff, we've seen in multiple stops, he's been successful in different places he's gone to. So I do give him a pass for that. I hope that Dan Campbell takes more of that charge over the offseason and putting that playbook and not letting it up to someone else's interpretation. And the nice thing for Detroit is, like, in terms of interior offensive line talent, this is a pretty good draft for people to go after and start to build it in there.
Well, we're kind of thinking that maybe the Packers might go in that direction as well, both offensively and defensively. They're going to need a nose tackle if you bring in, obviously, Jonathan Gannon, who does like to run more of a 3-4.
Yep.
And when you do that, you need that nose tackle guy. Devontae Wyatt's coming back off of that busted up ankle, but he's not your nose tackle. He's more of a defensive tackle, endish type of guy. So if they can find another piece of beef in the middle with Micah Parsons, and then who knows with Lucas. What did you guys think of Lucas Van Ness coming out, by the way, when you guys started to kind of evaluate the process and you looked at his play and what he could or couldn't be?
So I always get a little bit hesitant, having built these college to pro projection models of guys that have 1 year bursts in terms of production. And that was Lucas Van Ness. And Iowa has the thing where you have to be a senior, or at least if there's no seniors, a junior has to start. And him coming off in that bench into a rotational role at Iowa gave me a little bit of pause. But in terms of like traits, I think he had that to be a starter. I think he looked like a JJ Watt in terms of coming into the room, but you're wondering if that production would follow. And so his development to the NFL, I think, is on schedule, of a guy that only has 1 year of production into the NFL. I think it's tough in some ways to bet on traits if there's no production. We've seen Shamar Stewart from the Bengals was a good example of that. Freak athlete, very inconsistent play in college. Takes a little bit longer for him to develop as a pass rusher. I think that's something you're seeing similar with Lucas Van Ness, and last year, obviously, very successful for him.
Yeah, he had a much better season last year, specifically at the end of the season when he came back, and you had Michael Parsons go down, and they really kind of relied on him. I do want to go over to the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy, because that was a season. It was terrible. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, the Vikings are now kind of really scratching their head as to what the hell do they do when Daniel Jones leaves and has success, and now Sam Darnold, who you cut loose, also goes off and wins the Super Bowl.
Yep.
You got to be thinking to yourself, oh, but there, for the grace of God, should I have gone? So what do you think about J.J. McCarthy and what kind of a leap he needs to take in this upcoming season?
He just crumbles under pressure, and like he's got a similar to what we're talking about Jordan Love, although Jordan Love has controlled playmaking ability to extend the plays. J.J. McCarthy leans too much into that, and it becomes a little bit chaotic. I think if you are a guy that can adjust, one thing that I was thinking was surprising in terms of our metrics of he was a liability as an accurate person in design rollout plays, and that's design rollout plays, something that should speak to his ability. And I think if you can't design him to get away from the pressure, you have some problems, and he needs to anticipate the speed of the NFL, and he hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, that's boy, did they overestimate his talent coming out of college. Yeah, I liked him, and I thought he might be the most ready because of his maturity after winning a national title. And he looked like it early on in preseason, and then just you could see it. That first game against Chicago, he looked good and he ramped up, and they go back and win that game. And then you thought, okay, now if that's your jumping off point, that's a hell of a place to start. And it just never materialized. It was so, now he was banged up, but it was so up and down for a season for him.
Yeah, I'm curious the Vikings what their offseason plan is. They've got to find a contingency plan. I don't think that they have enough chips in their war chest to go get a Kyler Murray, but or a Malik Willis to fulfill their QB needs. But you definitely need a dependable veteran to shore up. I don't know if that's a Marcus Mariota.
How much did you like Malik Willis? Because he just didn't work out in Tennessee. So they get him, for a couple of draft choice, and you're like, okay, no big deal. But when he came in, he just showed this unbelievable athleticism, this accuracy, this tenacity. And you're like, where was all that in Tennessee?
Well, I think that's the expectation of, again, using an objective framework to that is what do you think of the value of a third, fourth round quarterback going to be in the NFL? I think starting in Tennessee is like high par of like what we'd expect of the third, fourth round quarterback. Having a longer development, I think he's on schedule from what I would expect of a day 2, day 3 quarterback. And so I think if we look at the hit rate of what we think a day 2, day 3 quarterback, I think he's been pretty successful.
Right.
But I think we put him into a day 1 first round quarterback bucket, and I don't think that's unfair to his development.
Right. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. So here, like, what are you specifically looking for here at the Combine with these guys?
Yeah, so I think from our data, talking about mock draft information, this is like, to me, the start of the season. We start to get more signal on it. I think what's cool about this year is we have guys opting into the drills, and there's been a trend for about 5 years of decline in every single position of guys opting out because they've had more certainty onto where they're going to go into the draft. And I think the draft process was a little bit better in terms of the grades they're getting from the NFL. With NIL guys coming back, there's a lot more uncertainty from that round 2 to round 5 range that is a little bit from a compensation standpoint. Guys can get that in college if they wait a little bit and develop to try to move that into the first round. And so that's created ripple effects in their data that's created more uncertainty. So guys are realizing that, go out and chase it in the Combine, try to improve your draft position. I don't think it's going to move the needle as much as people think to what NFL teams think of the guy. Yeah. But it'll at least pop up to be like, now I know this guy's 15th overall. I had him 20th overall. So if I really like this guy on the board that's there, I might have to make some moves to go get him.
Quinn, great to talk to you, man. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We got a lot more from the Scouting Combine coming up right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
We know at some point it is going to be riding season, and when it is, there's no better place to go. If you're going to get yourself into the wind, that is Suburban Harley-Davidson. Go to suburbanharley.com. That is suburbanharley.com, right on Main Street in Thiensville, Wisconsin. And whether it's a new bike, a used bike, motor, clothes, parts, accessories, getting your bike tuned up and ready for the summer, just whatever it happens to be. Or maybe you want to ride. Maybe you want to ride, you don't know how to, and they've got classes that keep you, not only teach you how to ride, but keep you safe as well. That is our friends at Suburban Harley. Go to suburbanharley.com, back again this year for the Big Unit Poker Run coming up Labor Day weekend, and we can't wait. We can't wait to make all the announcements. Suburban Harley-Davidson, a big part of all of that stuff. We appreciate them out there so much. Again, go to suburbanharley.com. That is suburbanharley.com. Joining me here at the table, Mike Clemens, hanging out, and, well, you just got a chance to talk to John Eric Sullivan.
I did. You know, you're walking around the combine facility here, and in the hallway, there's Elliot Wolf.
Yeah.
Okay, Ron Wolf's son.
Had a chance to say hi to him.
I took a picture. I'm going to post a little bit later. He's doing a meeting out in a lobby with about 20 New England reporters around him. Interesting, atmosphere like that. And then John Eric Sullivan, who's been Brian Gutekunst's number 2 guy for, 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't there during the Ron Wolf era, but he's now the new general manager of the Miami Dolphins. He hires Jeff Hafley, and then they've hired half of the defensive staff that Hafley had the last 2 years up in Green Bay. So he talked a little bit about those interviews, and it's interesting for me, just from a people perspective, is to know that John Eric was always serving Goody, right?
Yeah.
He was the number 2 guy. Now he's got the job, 42, 43 years old. You could just see the growth, the command, and all these guys are pretty sharp, and they've got the lingo down. They know how to categorize players. They know how to prioritize. And you talk about the quarterback situation.
Right.
Tua, whatever decision we make, they're going to move on.
Right.
But talking about Tua Tagovailoa, he talks about the positives. He's talking about decisions that he's made that have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know whatever's decided there. So he keeps it coldly open. Then you talk about Malik Willis. He talks about what a great guy he is, been around him, great personality, but we haven't even gone there yet. So, he's learned from the best, from Brian Gutekunst.
Right.
It's like, I know what I'm going to do. You want to play chess? All these guys, Bill, they're like great to talk to. It's like playing chess with some guy who's a great conversationalist, and he gets you into a conversation, right? And, you make your move and you're looking at the board. They go, oh, yeah, sure. And the next thing say, so he gets you to talk.
Right.
And then he goes, oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, checkmate.
Right. Yeah.
That's
they're a couple of steps ahead of you.
That's the way it feels with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want to reveal too much, but this is also, and I was saying this earlier, this is also last year where once we got them out of this building and we're seeing them on the streets or smoking cigars or having dinner, and they get 2 bourbons,
right?
And then you get a little bit more. Yeah, this is what I think of this guy. This is what I think of that guy.
Sure.
This is this is where the rumors start to, and this is where the deals are starting to be laid. When guys are trying to, the so-called tampering period has not yet begun, but this is where all the tampering and this is where they can talk to each other and nobody has to put anything into a text message.
When Kevin Costner came out of that film, Draft Day, people were, say, oh, that's so silly. And then the longer you go and the more you talk to NFL people, say they were pretty close.
Right.
They were pretty close. And so at the end of the day, the draft is a very tense period, man.
Yeah.
You're on the clock. The things are ticking away. You got 4 or 5 names on the board, and you have to make this decision.
Right.
And you feel the pressure of the world. Hell, you got Mel Kiper yelling at you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
guys are rocketing up his big board.
And when you're calling these teams, that relationship you made with that team over, a martini and some cocktail at St. Elmo's, that makes a difference.
Yeah. Which it was funny. I had 2 people said, hey, you going to go to St. Elmo's tonight? I said, no, we're going to Skyline Chili, and then we're going to go to Tony's tomorrow night. We go to say, we're the trendsetters.
Sure. Right.
You guys follow the pack. You're the sheep.
And
we're the trendsetters.
Tomorrow, if we see you here at the NFL Combine.
You know who wants to go to Skyline Chili with us tonight?
Who?
He said, text him when he gets here because he said, I've never heard of it. I really want to go. He's heard of it, but he's never had it. Greg Cosell.
Oh, awesome.
He said, I want to go with you guys.
Oh, great.
So I said, I'll text you when I get here. Can you imagine Greg Cosell sitting there spewing NFL stuff?
Sure.
Sitting there over a couple of Conies and a Skyline 3-way?
Well, he'll be talking about the people working behind the counter and how they ran a play to get the food out during a rush time,
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. We're going to break. Our first hour is down. We got a lot more yet to go. We got you got your.
I'm going upstairs. We're going to talk to the Packers.
I was going to say you got your little round table, private round table with Goody.
Don't follow me.
So
Don't
no,
follow
I'm not.
me. I gotta go.
Only to the bathroom. That's it. And that's usually out, and that's not in. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to get out of here. We got 1 hour down, 3 more yet to go. We are broadcasting live down here in Indianapolis, Indiana. The NFL Scouting Combine 2026 is underway. They are doing the interviews now, and then later on in the week, you're going to have the players that are going to be hitting the field, and we'll bring you all of that as well. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We got a lot more coming up right after this.
This is the Wisconsin Sports Zone Update.
Well, the Badgers headed out to Oregon last night. It's where they'll face off against the Ducks coming up on Wednesday night. Wisconsin will do so coming off a bounce-back 84-71 win over Iowa on Sunday. The game was another good one for Nick Boyd. Put up 27 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. 1 rebound short of the 4th triple-double in school history. Boyd would have liked to have gotten the triple-double, but the focus, though, was more on the outcome and what still awaits this team.
The win. None of that matters. We don't win. So, we got a great win over a great Iowa team, and now, we got to focus even more because we're going on the road for like 5 or 6 days, and this is just time. It's kind of special because right before March, you get the time with the team, bond some more and figure things out, and that's usually what you need if you want to make a deep run.
Again, it'll be Wisconsin and Oregon tomorrow night. Badgers then head to Washington to face the Huskies on Saturday. Just 4 games remain in the regular season. If the season ended today, the Badgers would be the number 6 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Turning to the Bucks, they're back in action tonight as Miami comes to the Pfizer Forum for a 7 o'clock tip. It's part of a 4-game homestand for the club.
Are you CCHAUS?
For nearly 40 years, ABC of Wisconsin has been helping men and women transform themselves into well-paid, productive members of their construction teams. Today, we have 2,000 active apprentices in 10 different skilled trade programs, and we educate individuals in more trades than anyone else. To get your career started, go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Okay.
The NFL Combine is kicking off in Indianapolis this week. The Packers are only sending their scouting staff once again this year, with the coaches staying back in Green Bay. And there are a couple of former Badgers taking part this week down there as well. Wide receiver Vinny Anthony and edge rusher Mason Reiger. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Welcome in. We are live. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana, here at the site of the NFL Scouting Combine 2026, just getting underway, and the coaches, general managers, all starting to take to the podium, starting to speak a little bit. We appreciate you hanging out with us and joining us here. Familiar face and voice, Sam Brucchaus from Sumer Sports is hanging out with us. How you been, man?
I've been on the road.
You haven't been home since before Super Bowl.
I haven't been home since before the Shrine Bowl. So I was in LA for a week shooting the evaluation, which you can find on the Sumer Sports YouTube channel. We talked quarterbacks and we talked running backs this past week.
Yeah.
Obviously, we recorded this weeks ago. The running back position is, we could get into this later, but like the running back position, I think is going to be the most interesting discussion this draft cycle because you have one guy at the top, Jeremiah Love, and then it's kind of a drop off into like the 60s. Of the draft. But all that to say, it was LA, it was Dallas in the cold, it was Mobile in the cold, it was San Francisco in the nice weather.
Right.
Then I took a trip home to South Louisiana, went to LA again. Now we're back here. Now I'm in Atlanta next week. But this is the best time of the year.
This is great.
So I can't even complain because
if
I
you're
love
a
the
football
draft.
junkie.
Oh, it's incredible.
I've always said that, now last year was my first time back in probably a decade, but this is where it's just football.
Mm-hmm.
There's no glitz, there's no glams, there's no parties, and I've always said, between the steakhouses, the restaurants, the little places that people like to go, and then the cigar lounges.
Yeah.
when you get GMs with a couple of bourbons and a cigar, you get all the information you could possibly get. It's almost overload, and you always come back with a nugget of something.
100%.
And that's what's the best about it. This is.
The funniest part, I think, having done the Super Bowl for 2 years now, is like at the Super Bowl, me as a draft-focused person, typically, like, you know, people will wave at me and say hi, but everyone's so busy and everyone is so focused on what's going to be my big moment at the Super Bowl. When I come to the combine, it's like people from the bigger sites are like, hey, what do the numbers say about this guy? And all of a sudden, all the football starts coming out. And that's why I love the combine so much.
Speaking of that, why are people so high on Ty Simpson?
Man, that's a good
quarterback
question.
out of Alabama, for those who don't know. And I'm listening yesterday. I'm coming down. We're driving down here. We're listening to the mock draft on the NFL Network, and we were listening to others talk mock drafts. We all know who number one is going to be. Mendoza's going to go, and he's probably going to the Raiders unless there's a big deal, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't see Ty Simpson being that top 5, top 10 guy. Do you?
No. I think you look at his analytical traits, and he really does not have a blue chip trait that we see. I mean, he was basically what we would consider an above average good starter in college for a team that had a lot of talent. And I think a real question at the combine is going to be, and I just produced a combine article, which you can find on SumerSports.com, talking about everything that really matters. The combine at maximum, if I had to rate it out of 10, at maximum, and that's for talking about tackles and maybe tight ends, is like a 3 of 10. Like, we're not seeing a lot of juice from measurements and stuff like that, but like, I think he's probably going to be shorter than people expect him to be. I don't know how he didn't pop in anything. And so I do think it comes back to 2 basic analytical ideas. The first thing is that quarterbacks are by far the most valuable position. You can really only get certifiably good quarterbacks consistently in the top 15 picks. And if he gets pushed up into those top 15 picks, then clearly the consensus has some sort of data behind him for that reason, that being the reason. I don't necessarily see it. I don't see it.
I don't see it either. And this is where general managers lose their job. Because you overreach for a guy that really shouldn't be there, but you don't have a quarterback. So you're like, well, we can mold him. I'll mold him. We'll fix it. And sometimes it's not fixable. It is what you see is what you get. And you're not getting the top 5 pick. You're getting a guy that really should be probably either at the bottom or the next round.
Right.
And you're forcing him to be the guy, and you just ruin a guy. You just ruin him.
100%. And I think if you're going to push a guy up there, it needs to be an athletic guy who can run. Because at least you can build a baseline on their running abilities. And I just don't see that from Ty Simpson. Now, we do have analytically, this has been studied to an incredible amount, called the quarterback prediction problem. And that's the idea that we actually do a very good job of capturing data on quarterbacks. It's just that the data can't tell us everything.
Right.
And thus, there's an element of randomness, of variability that we still can't quantify, and hopefully we can as technology progresses. That's what we're trying to do at Sumer Sports on a day-to-day basis. But it's just so difficult to understand which guy is going to be better than any other guy.
Yeah.
That being said, when you look at averages, a guy who is consensus big board number 1 or 5, I guess, if you really want to look at it in the top 5, like Fernando Mendoza, is almost always going to be $10 to $20 million more valuable than a guy who's in the 60s,
right?
Like Ty Simpson is. And so I personally don't see a database case to push him up. I don't see a database case to go crazy about him. I think it's an evaluator's flavor. And if someone falls in love with the guy, then someone falls in love with the guy. I wouldn't agree with it, though.
See, years ago, when we were working on the network, I worked with Brian Neville, who played linebacker for the Packers. And then we sat with Ron Wolf quite a bit. And Ron and Brian would always talk to me. And this is where I learned a lot of football at the time via the NFL, is just watching film with those guys. And there was always the immeasurable. And Ron said, give me a guy that's an actual football player over an athlete. Because the athletes are measurable, that's great. But give me a guy when it's fourth quarter and you have to have a play that has the heart and the drive and the mind and the mindset and the ability to dissect to do it, which is what analytics can't tell you.
Right.
You don't know if the guy's an athlete or a football player. Otherwise, Usain Bolt would have been the best wide receiver in the National Football League. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the tough thing to be able to tell that analytics just don't have a measure on.
No, and in my article, which basically is titled "The Combine Doesn't Have Juice," like I'm paraphrasing my own word, but it's like you're not going to get a ton out of it. In the final paragraph, I made sure to mention that there is other stuff going on at the combine. There are interviewing players. There are medicals going on.
Yeah.
There is people talking to one another, trying to figure out the idea of how the draft order is going to play out. And I think that interview portion is at least trying to take a process-based approach to try to figure out what you just said, the heart and the understanding. There's a thing also, to an example, the first portion of sack avoidance, which I think players like Matthew Stafford do an incredible job of, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, guys who never got sacked but weren't really great athletes. Like, the pre-snap period is an element where you can decrease sacks. And so like, that's another thing that I think is going to be asked in these interviews. And so the combine does have immense importance outside of just the media spectacle. And it really lies in those interviews and those medicals.
So we just had Quinn McLean on a little while ago. We were talking about just that, the ability at pre-snap to avoid the sacks and avoid the pressure by seeing what's coming, or at least being able to, in your mind, predictability wise, know where you're going to. He started to say Jordan Love's not that guy. In that sense, he's really good and a good quarterback in a clean pocket, but his numbers dropped dramatically under pressure, and some of it was the pressure that he could have avoided had you understood what was coming at you in the pre-snap.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way?
I like how you said that, because there's pressure avoidance and then there's sack avoidance.
Correct.
And we've talked a lot about how Jordan Love can keep the team on schedule because he does not get sacked.
Correct.
But there's a difference between a guy who avoids pressure and puts themselves in positions where now you can't really make a play.
Right.
And so like, Quinn does an excellent job of breaking this down. And I think that's a really good delineation there, because I like to focus on the sacks a little bit more, because you're not losing that value. You live to fight another down. That's frankly the reason why the Broncos offense is viable at all.
Right.
And to a certain degree, the Packers as well. But when you are allowing that pressure to get to you in a way that, more of a statuesque quarterback like Jared Goff can deliver through pressure, even though he will take the sacks on the ones that he can't avoid, like Jordan Love can, I do think that makes a little bit of a difference, particularly given how your offense is attacking.
That's why I see, and I can make the comparison. Now, Lamar Jackson is a freak. He's just an athlete with a quarterback ability. But then you look at a guy like Josh Allen, who sees it coming, knows where it's coming, has the ability to duck, move, and all of a sudden putting himself in a position where he's out of it. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes we saw over the years. Joe Burrow is not an athletic guy. He just can avoid it. Now, he takes a lot of sacks. His offensive line sucks, but he's got that ability. There's some guys that have the innate ability to say, okay, I already see it coming. Rodgers was like that.
Right.
I can see it coming. I know where it is. I know I've got 2.5 seconds to get rid of this football or I'm going to get hit. There's some guys that have that. And that's why I'm hoping that this is that breakout year upcoming for Jordan. He had a better year this year.
Definitely.
But that's the only thing in his game that I'm looking at going, there's that one tick more that I think he can do that's going to take him and elevate him from a really good quarterback possibly into then that upper pantheon of guys.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it. There's 4 parts, I think, that we've identified of sack avoidance. Number 1, which we've talked about, the pre-snap element, which is a little bit harder to quantify, but you can kind of get a sense of it. The second is the offensive line. How good is your offensive line going to do? Some inconsistencies across the Packers offensive line all year. I think they're going to get that ironed out in the offseason. The third is the quarterback, which I think Jordan Love is probably a top 3 guy of, like, I'm just not going to get sacked.
Right.
And then the fourth, which I think Jordan Love has to a certain degree as well, but I'll call it the Ben Roethlisberger sack element, which Josh Allen definitely has. It's just like, I'm big and I'm not going down.
Right.
And I think Jordan Love does have an element of that, even though he's like not necessarily a massive guy. And so I think really, if you iron out number 2 in the offseason with personnel and you iron out number 1 as continuing to, like, that's going to be the progression. Last year we were here talking about, Jordan Love, the decision making is not there. There's all these other elements. I think that Coach LaFleur gave him the keys a little bit more. He showed that he can do it. He ended up being a top 2, top 3 EPA per play passer this year. The last portion is that kind of playoff energy where you have to solve things early,
right?
Because they're not going to allow you the space to solve them once the snap is off.
The draft this year, where's it loaded? Because the Packers, to me, they need a nose tackle if they're going to play 3-4 and go back with Jonathan Gannon, and they got to bolster their offensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the defensive tackle position is the spot where it's loaded. There's 2 guys in particular that you can get kind of throughout the draft. Grayson Holden is a guy from Oklahoma, Senior Bowl guy, and frankly, both these guys were at the Senior Bowl, who is like more of kind of that, like, he's not going to be a crazy huge nose guard, but he can play kind of 1-tech, 3-tech, pass rusher, win with hands. Really loved his approach at the Senior Bowl. Then I went and checked afterward in the data, showed up in the data as well. If you want that old school nose guard that still has some of those capabilities, Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech is the guy you want. Extremely another guy who was extremely productive at the Senior Bowl. Really shocked me. Went and looked at the data. Has some high highs, has some question marks. Particular, you look at the team he was on. He was that team was loaded. I mean, like Romello Height, who's going to get drafted. You had David Bailey, who potentially
Texas Tech had a hell of a year.
Yeah. So the questions with him is he has the size. He was able to do it in multiple different perspectives. It's just like how much could be put on him. I think when you're in a situation where you have Micah Parsons,
right?
Like that's a great element to have should Micah Parsons come back 100% healthy.
Well, Micah Parsons, Devontae Wyatt's eventually going to come back.
Yep.
I mean, which is also a hell of a defense. He started to actually emerge into what they thought he was in Georgia this year before he ended up going down with injury. And you saw what the void was after he went down. They just didn't have the run stuffing capability. But if you get a guy like that in the middle and nose tackle next to Devontae Wyatt, it just makes Edrin Cooper so much better and Quay Walker 100%. So much better. And, you know, who knows if it's Lucas Van Ness or whomever's going to be on the outside, because I can't imagine him keeping Rashawn Gary, but it would make them better as well up front. It would just change the look of that defense if they had a bona fide nose tackle.
Yeah, and it's a great highlight in particular with edge because Jonathan Gannon is going to play a 3-4 in quotes. He's going to mix the looks up a ton. I mean, you look at the guys that he was able to make viable at the Cardinals, a guy like Zaven Collins, who I played against in college, 6'5", 235, played off ball most of the time. All of a sudden, he's coming off the edge. You got Baron Browning, who he made viable. Josh Sweat. There's all these guys and his ability to move them around, and there's no better highlight than Budda Baker. And you got two good safeties with the Packers as well, who are going to be utilized in that way. And I think like they could definitely just go defensive tackle, but I do trust if nothing, like realistically, the reason why Gannon is no longer the head coach of the Cardinals is because that defense was the weak link of the team for 2 straight years. But I know pretty reliably that he is going to mix up the looks and he's going to get players in a position to succeed.
Do you think, I mean, the defense was not great and Kyler Murray wasn't great. Kyler Murray is a guy that I've always said he's going to give us 7 terrific games and the rest of the season is going to be crap.
Right.
So I think due in part because of that, obviously some injuries, but did you like him coming out of Philadelphia as a defensive coordinator?
I think I liked him. And honestly, for the most part, that team was not as bad as they looked at on paper the last 2 years. And I think, you know, you catch a couple bad breaks. I think really there was probably, I mean, like we saw it kind of spill out with Amari DeMarcado last year where he's like hitting him and stuff. Like I think he kind of lost the locker room to a certain degree. And who are you going to pin like Kyler Murray all of a sudden seeing a player who is a advantaged multi-sport athlete who under Lincoln Riley was one of the most explosive scramble players, when all of a sudden his scramble rate starts going down, his average depth of target starts going down, his time to throw starts going down. Like at some point there has to be like a culture of success. And I do question if that's not more of the reason why he's not the coach of Cardinals at this point, just because they didn't have that. But to a certain degree, you know, you had to like him as the defense coordinator coming out, you know, after like a Super Bowl season and developing players. And I think he developed players pretty well with the Cardinals to a certain degree too. And now that he's in more of a position and frankly has better players with the backers. I mean, like when the backers had a full deck of cards, they were a very, very good defense last year. And so I do think this is a scenario that is set up for John Gannon to succeed.
Before I let you go, the secondary, you got Carrington Valentine, who has a propensity not to tackle and move away from it. Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, who had a knee issue before the season even got underway, and I don't think he ever really got on track. I do like Xavier McKinney back there, obviously. Evan Williams, I think, is a hitter, and I really like the way he progressed this year. Zane Anderson's another guy who I like that sticks his nose in there. But give me your assessment of what the secondary is for the Packers, and maybe that's another area of need going into this draft.
Yeah, I think the big weakness going into the year, I think the discussion was going to be that the cornerback position was a major question mark for them, and I think Keyshawn Nixon performed pretty well throughout most of the season, and you got the 2 safeties who play well. Yeah, they played well over 2 years now, especially when Evan Williams is really healthy, and so you have players at each position. I do think there is an element though of like, how are we going to get all these guys on the same page? Right. And I think the biggest worry for me is the interior line. I think that there's going to be corners in this draft if you want to pick one up in the mid rounds where you can do it. And they're going to have question marks. D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana, a certified press guy, despite being 5'8", 5'9", performed extremely well across multiple different scenarios. I think there are cornerbacks to be had. I don't think it's going to have to be something that they're going to have to push really hard for in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, when you talk about a guy that's 5'8", most general managers go, ooh. Because when you look at a 6'2", 6'3", wide out going down the field, it's just, let him go to the apex and get it because physically he's not going to get there. So,
well, it's really interesting. Just real short, we talked to Kamari Laster, who Lindsay voted for an All-Pro list. We tried to get him on the All-Pro list with what we could do, and we asked him to rank press coverage, mirroring the wide receiver, and trying to make a play at the catch point. And he's like, "Look, I love picks. If the guy isn't getting off the line, I have no problems."
Right.
So he really loved press coverage. So that kind of informed me as I was looking through our analytical traits of who to look at press coverage. Mansour Delon at the top, D'Angelo Pons in the middle rounds. Those are the guys who you can kind of look at throughout the draft to fill some blanks.
Good stuff, Sam. Appreciate it as always. Thanks for coming. Now you're here all week and all through Sunday, right? Before you finally go back home?
I'm heading out on Friday.
Then go to L.A.
Yep.
And then finally you get to go back home.
Well, I'm going to Atlanta. Anyway, lots of stuff going.
Yeah, I can't keep up. So good stuff. Sam Brucchaus from Super Sports joining us here at the table. We're going to step away. We're going to go take a quick break. We'll come back. We got a whole lot more down here in Indianapolis coming up right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
We are live. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana. It is the Bill Michaels Show. All throughout the great state of Wisconsin, well beyond the borders as well. And we're down here. Compliments of our good friends over there, J&L Tire and Service Center. J&L Tire and Service right out there in Johnson Creek. And don't forget on Boulder Road, up in Watertown as well. And they were voted year after year after year the best tire dealer out there. And it doesn't matter if you're getting an oil change, engine work, tires, brakes, all the things that you need for your vehicle, even for wiper blades for that matter. And it doesn't matter if you're a minivan or an 18-wheeler. They've got something for everybody, facilities to do it in. So if you're an over-the-road driver and you're listening to me right now and you're having an issue and you need a place to go, that's a place to go. J&L Tire and Service Center, Boulder Road in Watertown, Wisconsin, highways 26 and 94 right there in Johnson Creek as well. It's just north of I-94 in the Johnson Creek area. And Lyle and his whole staff, they do such a great job. They're very philanthropic, very trustworthy as well. And those are the people you want to deal with. Grant Bills and I sitting here at the table. You know, you just came back from you got a chance to ask Jeff Hafley a question. You kind of put his feet to the fire.
Well, I found myself in some press scrums over there.
Yeah,
and I don't like just hanging out. Like I try to participate. Zach always gives me guff for this because he says you just ask questions. You just like to hear yourself talk. I'm like, well, sure, but also I like to participate. Yeah, Hafley was good. John Eric Sullivan was good as well. But I did ask Jeff Hafley a question. I said, you guys struggled to close games out last year. So what did you learn from that? And because Miami's going to have to learn how to win. Right. It's not like he's walking into an outfit that's
they don't even know who their quarterback is.
Exactly. They don't know who their quarterback is. But even if they did, like that's not an organization that's known for, that's a clutch team, the Dolphins. Right. They really win when it matters most. They're not that team. So he mostly gave a non-answer. He's like, well, I have to look at the film. Some of those games I could have coached better. Or we could have executed better. I don't know what I was hoping for. It was mostly a non-answer, but I don't know. He was he was like, I'm going to go over. He was making an effort to get to everyone. It's like, okay, so I can actually probably get a question in here without screaming.
Well, you were kind of hoping for him to say, well, and then X really sucked or Y really sucked and Z really sucked. And, this guy couldn't do this.
Or, a comment where it's like, that's something that really frustrated me all year. And I spent some time thinking about that after, it left a bad taste. Just any little personal anecdote or anything. Didn't really get it. But
did he talk about it all, his time in Green Bay?
It was such a mix. Complimentary things you have. Everybody that he worked with, nothing overly specific that comes to mind. The sense that I got was the second that playoff game ended, he said he had 6 interviews in 5 days. I think the second that game was done, he's like, all right, he had to flush it, which I think you have to do in this business. John Eric Sullivan also, when asked about hiring Hafley over some other guys, he made a point to say, Hafley was in demand. Like if we wanted him, we had to go quick. Right. So the sense that I got from both Hafley and John Eric Sullivan is he was getting a job. And if it wasn't in Miami, it was going somewhere else, which I guess we kind of thought. I talked a little bit about it with Aaron Nagler just over there while you were talking with Quinn. It's like, I'm not surprised that Jeff Hafley was in demand, but it's not like his defense blew doors this year. No. It's not like they were incredible. So that speaks to his ability to get in a room and speak and have command over guys and interview really well.
But he was in demand before he talked to people. Yeah. So you got to know him a little bit, and it's a small fraternity of coaches that kind of recommend to other coaches who might be the guy. But I mean, obviously John Eric Sullivan saw him up close and personal on a daily. But to have 5 teams call and say, "Hey, you're on our list." Mm-hmm. When we all thought, well, maybe the end of the season didn't really earn him a job. Well, it was quite the opposite. It was like, it didn't hurt him at all.
No. And I think a big part of that interest, he got interviews last year too. Yeah. And there weren't a ton of amazing candidates in this cycle, which probably played to his advantage. I wouldn't be surprised at all if, while we're hearing about this Jeff Hafley, maybe he's on our list for the end of the year. Let's watch a press conference. Yeah. Let's watch an interview. And, even in just a random Thursday press conference, he was always good. He was always great.
Yeah. Yeah. He always gave you something. He always gave you something from the heart. He always talked about his team and kept his team first. And he, and especially when you're a team that, well, first of all, you're firing your head coach, so something's gone wrong. Yeah. But when you stink and you're trying to, quote, rebuild the culture, there's your culture guy.
Leader of men. Yes. Right. We're looking for a leader of men. And it's no coincidence the Dolphins have a new GM, but the owner's still there, right? And there's people probably at the top next to the owner who's still there. Who did they just get rid of? They got rid of Mike McDaniel, right? Who's this scheme nerd. Right. So they go the complete opposite direction. We're going to get a leader of men. Right. We're going to get a voice.
And that was part of the problem for McDaniel. I mean, just what leaked out over the last couple of years where guys didn't even show up to meetings.
His scheme was good throughout. They ran the hell out of the ball this year. That one never went away.
It just looked like at times like teeted. I remember I was listening to one of the national, it might have been Florio at one point, Florio or Sims, talking about, all the problems inside the locker room that even some of the veteran players were saying, man, there's issues here. And he can't stop it. There's no disciplinary capability down here. There's no accountability to others. And that probably more so than anything is what got him fired.
And it's hard, dude. You're in Miami. Hafley even said something at the podium about off-season activities where it's like, well, people want to live in Miami around. It's not so cold. I don't have to badger guys to be down here. And it wasn't a shot at Green Bay, but it definitely said, oh, okay, well, that says something. It's harder to keep those guys in the building in Green Bay. But once they're there, there's fewer distractions. I don't think it's a coincidence that Miami has really struggled to be a serious football outfit for such a long time, because you can go to the beach.
Right.
There's women, there's clubs, it's all due to Green Bay. Well, fewer distractions.
A lot of outdoor stuff that you can do too. I mean, a lot of these guys love to take the offshore fishing trips and stuff that you'd rather get to and not necessarily put your work in down there.
Especially when the team stinks. You know what I mean? Like when guys signed with the Dolphins, you get a big contract. And if by week 5 they are the Miami Dolphins, which they are every year, he said, well, hey, at least I'm living in Miami. Right. You know what I mean? I can collect my check. I'll do my business, but I don't need to overextend. That's human nature. I understand that. And that's a battle they have to fight down there in Miami that they don't in Green Bay.
Anything that you learned from John Eric Sullivan?
I mean, a lot of talk about quarterbacks. Everybody wants to talk about quarterbacks. He had a comment that I heard about, when I got to Green Bay, Ron Wolf wasn't there, but his fingerprints were everywhere. Yeah. Talking about their strategy of always drafting quarterbacks. He made a comment of, well, when we took Aaron, he wasn't Aaron yet.
Right.
And he wasn't bragging, but a comment like that makes it seem like, well, everyone thinks that was such an easy pick and he was great from the beginning and there was little implication. That wasn't the case. We had our program and we had our development program. We brought him in. So to hear him talk about that was interesting. The thing that I circled, though, was how in demand Jeff Hafley was from Eric Sullivan.
Yeah. And you find it funny because when I talked to Aaron at one point about the culture and the quarterback program and Mike McCarthy's quarterback school, and he very quickly stopped me in my tracks and said, you think that was all them?
Yeah.
And as if to say, you don't think I had anything to do with that?
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone doubts Rodgers' talent and his power.
And
for sure.
So I said, oh, no. And he's like, no. And he kind of rolled his eyes like quarterback school. Like, yeah, right. And
all right.
I'm like, okay, well.
How long? When was that? When was that conversation?
Oh, that was probably the year they won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
That was probably in that season.
I wonder if he feels differently now. Being in a couple of different buildings. And it's so much later in his career, so he's established. But I wonder if being in the Jets for 2 years, the Steelers are I don't think it's a surprise that he really talked highly of Pittsburgh after being in, New York with the Jets.
Oh, God.
I wonder if now he would look back and it's not that he would say it was all the Packers. I had nothing to do with it, but I wonder if his perspective would have changed a little bit.
I think in what he has stated regarding Green Bay since he's left New York.
Yes.
And even at the end of his reign in New York, I think he kind of now went, oh, okay, I appreciate where I was.
Yeah.
The grass, and even though he went to another team that had green in it, the grass was not greener on the other side of the fence.
And I think it's really easy to talk about, to be fair, to talk about your quarterback development. And, look at the Patriots, right? That we thought for the longest time, well, yeah, Brady's great, but the Patriots do this. And then Brady was gone. And it was clear they didn't have a clue. Like Belichick didn't know what to do, and Gerard Mayo didn't have a clue. So it's really easy to talk about your program when you have that guy, when you have that quarterback.
Right.
The second that guy's gone, some of that stuff becomes overrated.
Well, you look at what, the quote quarterback school developed after Rodgers.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. I mean, Hundley. That famous quote from Mike McCarthy was like, I got 5 years invested in Brett Hundley, 3 years in Joe Callahan. They couldn't develop anything. They had to bring back Matt Flynn.
They brought back anybody that could even throw. They were bringing back old dudes. I mean, and it still wasn't getting it done. It didn't matter who they drafted and brought in. And then when Mike leaves, obviously Jordan Love is brought in, and then Jordan Love has had the development.
Yep.
And it's pretty interesting because listening to Quinn from Sumer and Sam Brucchaus from Sumer both say the same thing. Like Jordan Love is on that cusp. He's got to take that next step. There's another step there that he has to be able to do, and both of them kind of agreed that it's the pre-snap reads, getting yourself understanding where the pressure's coming from, because if you can avoid that pressure, you're that much better a quarterback. And then obviously he alluded to some of the good ones that do it, but that's going to be where everybody's going to try to, I should say everybody, but the Green Bay Packers are going to try to elevate that level of play for Jordan Love coming into the season.
Well, Quinn showed me a couple of those numbers, like the footwork and the in-pocket maneuvering, and we've known that. Guys have, Greg Cosell would tell you the same thing. He's great at that. I think part of struggling with pressure is understanding what you're seeing pre-snap. And I think as quarterbacks get older,
right?
Tom Brady at the end, Matt Stafford, I think, is this way now. He knows before he snaps the ball, it's coming from here. I got it. And I think that stuff can only be figured out. Even if you're a smart quarterback, you just need time. So I know Jordan Love's been in the league. He's been starting 3 years. He's been in the league 5 or 6 now. But I would wonder, as he gets older, understanding where it's coming from pre-snap, does that help with dealing with pressure? When you know it's coming and where you know where it's coming from.
You thought this season would be the season, and they do both, and I admit too, Jordan Love had a good season. He played really well. He took a step forward. You kind of wonder if this upcoming season now would be the season in which everything slows down.
Sure.
It's really slow. You're old. You're a veteran. It's old hat now. Now you know where the pressures are going to be. You start to see indicators. Is this the season where you begin to pick it up and you really kind of begin to accelerate as a quarterback, where the apex of your talent and your athleticism begin to hit with the age and experience starts to come into town?
Yep.
So let's do this. We're going to step out. We're going to take a quick break. We're broadcasting live down here in Indianapolis. The NFL Scouting Combine, NFL 2026, is now underway. The general managers, the head coaches, new head coaches, all speaking all throughout the day, in the afternoon, into the evening, as a matter of fact, because like Robert Saleh and a couple of them go later on tonight. Some of these guys don't go until after 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight down here. So not everybody speaks right now. Everybody's going to be scattered throughout the day, and then more things coming up tomorrow, and then interviews tomorrow for some of these players, and then getting into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, when all the different groups begin to kind of show their wares over at Lucas Oil. So we got a lot going on, but we're going to deviate away from football for just a little bit. We've got it's our buddy Jim Owczarski coming up next. Jim Owczarski from the Journal Sentinel is going to join us next for his weekly Bucks visit. So don't go anywhere. We're going to talk to Jim a little bit about what's going on. The Bucks have kind of picked up the unofficial second half of the season. We'll get into that discussion coming up. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Social House, H-A-U-S, Social House, right there on West Lisbon Road, Menominee Falls, in Brookfield as well. And just a terrific place to go. They really did a great job with their Super Bowl over the Super Bowl, weekend, and donated a lot of money to a Big Unit Foundation. We always appreciate that. But just good food, great place, great people, really fun staff, for lack of a better term. And they have all the new beers, including Yingling and such, which is now on tap. So check out our friends at Social House, H-A-U-S, West Lisbon Road, Menominee Falls. Always something good going on at the house. More of the Bill Michaels Show live at Indy next.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
We're live. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana, here inside the Convention Center. The NFL Draft Combine 2026 underway. And in this particular segment, we were going to talk with Jim Owczarski, but he just texted us, and he's running late. He's getting a sit-down with somebody. I don't know who he's talking to. But he is going to join us a little bit later on the program. So that being said, we're going to deviate away from Jim, and we're going to listen to some of the things that Daniel Jeremiah had to say down here at the NFL Network. We're going to get into that coming up here momentarily. But this portion of the program is brought to you by our terrific friends, Expanding Horizons in Marinette, Wisconsin. Go to marinette.wi.us, and it is just a beautiful part of the state. And I talk about it all the time because I've been there, I've seen it, I've shopped in the downtown, I've been to some of the restaurants and the pubs and met the people and been to the M&M high school football game, and it's so much fun. And they've got some good stuff coming up, and I want to let you know about it. So coming up on March 14th, Jason Sheff is going to be, he's a longtime lead vocalist from the band Chicago. And March 14th, he's going to be appearing in Marinette, Wisconsin. Ticket prices are fantastic. They've got VIP and such. As a matter of fact, VIP tickets include the pre-party with appetizers, drinks, a photo wall, the meet and greet, seating for in the first 4 rows of the event. And don't forget, you get free tickets not VIP tickets, but free tickets, if indeed you book a room, if you're heading in that direction, at the Independence Stay or the Holiday Inn. So if you want to go see the show and you're from out of town and you want tickets, book your stay now at Independence Stay or the Holiday Inn Express in Marinette, Wisconsin, and you get free tickets to the show. So it's a tremendous, tremendous deal. But Jason Sheff, the longtime lead vocalist of Chicago, coming to town March 14th. And don't forget, on April 9th, Charlie Barron's tickets are on sale now. Charlie Barron's is going to be making an appearance in Marinette as well. $30. They're on sale, and there's table sponsorships for $500, including the VIP experience. Also, that is all in Marinette, Wisconsin. And maybe just go over there and watch a ship get launched. I mean, that's great within itself. But they have so much to offer in Marinette, Wisconsin. Go to marinette.wi.us, marinette.wi.us. Good stuff from our friends in Marinette, Wisconsin. Okay, Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network here at the Combine sat down and was talking about, the Green Bay Packers. And he talked about who might be there for the Green Bay Packers that would be intriguing when you get a long-time draft analyst, by the way, with Daniel Jeremiah is, when you get to the second and third round, when you're looking at that offensive and defensive front.
So when you're looking at interior offensive linemen, they're picking 52 and 84. I think there's good options there. Some of the players that I've mentioned, I think, Rutledge is one who I really, really like, who's, I think can play any of the three interior spots, is a good fit there. Dunker would definitely be a popular pick there out of Iowa, who's got the mullet and almost 6'5", 320 pounds, played tackle, is going to play inside at guard. He's real physical and nasty. He's in that range as well. Hecht from K-State. The center, can play guards. He's a good interior player. Emmanuel Pregnon. From Oregon. There's a good group of interior guys, kind of in that range where they're picking in the second round. The corners in the third round. I would probably look at that group of interior linemen if you wanted somebody to play right away in the second round, and knowing that the corners, that pool is a little deeper when you get into the third round. And we'll see like Dalen Everett from Georgia. We'll see where Chris Johnson from San Diego State goes in that mix. Malik Muhammad from Texas. There's a bunch of guys in that mix there. I really like the kid from Duke too. Chandler Rivers is a good player. So I have a long list of corners with third roundish grades. I would feel better about the interior guys doing that in the second round if you're going to look at those two positions.
So there you go. That's kind of what the Packers might be looking at in the second and the third round. The interior guys, and then there is going to be some depth and availability when it comes to the cornerback position, which we all figure the Packers are probably going to need some depth back there. That's one of the areas of concern coming into the season. So that's. But now you kind of project that and you say, okay, well, the team that won the division, believe it or not, is Chicago Bears, and they had an incredible season. They had an incredible run. They garnered some magic and things fell into place. So at in the 25th pick overall, do they then say, hey, we've got to get a pass rush, we've got to find that guy that's going to come off the edge? Or at that point in time, being 25, are you just taking, as the board falls, as we all like to say, the best available player?
Yeah, I'm always a fan of going best, which is hilarious. It's always a great discussion because, you take for need or best available. I'm like, well, a lot of teams stack their board based off need so they can justify taking best available. It's like, come on, guys. No, there's going to be tackles. There's going to be both there. They're in a great spot for those two positions. Tackles, I think you see, one of those guys is going to be there. And, you've got a group of them there, from Blake Miller, Monroe Freeling, Proctor from Alabama, Lomu from Utah. I would say even Max Ianachor is in that range now out of Arizona State. I had him. He was my 41st player going into the Senior Bowl. He was awesome there. And plus, he's a big physical dude. So whose best football is ahead of him. So he could start getting into that range of the draft as well. So out of that clump, I can't envision all of them are gone. So you're going to get one of those guys who would be, able to plug and play, in my opinion. And then you look at those edge rushers. It'll be fascinating to see what happens. With Mesdor, we talked about a little bit older, but a great player. Cassius Howell, he's going to be an interesting case study because he's got all this production. He's just over 6'2", 254 pounds. He's going to have really, really short arms. And there's teams, people can say it's no big deal. Teams care about it. So that'll be interesting. And then you take the short arm part of it. And then I think he might run in the low 4.5s, potentially even faster than that. He's a freak in terms of how explosive he is. But he's going to be kind of in that range. And then, Keldrick Falk is someone I think teams are all over the map on. He's got this ideal frame. He's young. He's almost 6'6", 274 pounds, plays inside, plays outside, real smooth mover. He's great against the run. Just doesn't have, an elite get off or urgency as a rusher, and doesn't have a ton of production. So you balance that out with he's really, really young and has an NFL body. And by all accounts, talking to folks at Auburn, his character and intangibles off the charts. So I think you see a wide range of where he goes, but that's a good group of guys there. And then even TJ Parker from Clemson, R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, Zion Young, you're going to start seeing a lot of those guys get, talked about in that portion of the draft. They're in a good spot. There's some years where you're need and where you're picking and you're like, oh crap, we better move one way or another. I think they can just sit right where they are and see how it falls.
Then you've got, as Daniel Jeremiah kind of goes on, and we talked a little bit about this earlier when we had Quinn McLean on from Sumer Sports, how the analytics have changed for the combine, and the pendulum has swung back for guys getting into the combine and opting in, not opting out because of position, because they've gone back to school because they're getting more money in school than they are to actually get into the NFL. So in asking Daniel Jeremiah, how much has NIL money changed the NFL draft and combine process?
For all the the issues that have popped up in college football and a lot of complaints with how things have changed and NIL and the transfer portal, what doesn't get discussed at all, and I think it's a massive deal from the scouting standpoint, is the realignment that took place. If you're watching a quarterback in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're watching him against elite competition, five or six times during the regular season. And if they make a postseason run, you might get 2, 3, 4 more games of that. So it just, the more you can see of a player, the more comfortable you're going to be with who he is, and the more confident you'll be in your evaluation.
Then, in addition to that, he was also asked Daniel Jeremiah, Packers Mark Murphy, on what he did to do between his time as a safety in Washington and then being named the president of the Green Bay Packers. That was a discussion as well.
Well, there was quite a few years there between when I was a player. My career ended. I got cut the day I turned 30. So I remember that vividly. And then obviously, I came back. I started the position with the Packers, I think, when I was 52 or 53. But during the years between then, I did a lot. I think as I look back on it, one of the things that really helped me after my career ended was my involvement with the NFL Players Association. I was a Redskins player rep. I ended up being vice president of the union, worked really closely with people like Ed Garvey and Gene Upshaw, and then worked for the NFL Players Association. And, I ended up going to law school at Georgetown after my career ended with the Redskins, and ended up as a trial attorney with the Justice Department. Was really enjoying my work with the Justice Department, but I did miss my involvement in athletics. And when the opportunity to become the athletic director at Colgate, my alma mater, that really kind of changed my direction of my career. And I had 12 years at Colgate as athletic director, and then 5 years at Northwestern, and and then the opportunity with the Packers, came about 18 years ago, and it was such a great organization that it was something that I just couldn't turn down, and was really excited. The 18 years flew by.
There you go, Mark Murphy talking about his time in Green Bay as well on the network. So there you have it. Some interesting insight, but how the NIL has kind of changed the NFL. We talk a lot about the NIL kind of ruining college sports to a certain extent, but how has it changed the NFL? Because now the players, if they're not going to be a highly ranked player coming into the NFL and the money's not going to be there, it almost pays you to go back to college, hone your skills a little bit more, come back into the NFL and be more of a a polished player. As by the time you get here, you're not, you get an extra year to basically go back and cultivate yourself before you jump into the NFL. And you've already got money, so you're just worried about now concentrating on your skill and your ability and longevity in the game as well. So some interesting takes there also. Let's do this. We're broadcasting live inside the convention center. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. The scouting combine is underway. Right now, there are people heading over to get a hold of Brian Gutekunst, and they're doing the private conversation upstairs, and then he's going to be coming down to the podium and speaking just here in a little bit. So we're going to hopefully we get some of that for you, but if not, I know that for a fact we're going to get our buddy Bill Huber's going to be over here. Mike Clemens is going to be here. They're all going to be here. We'll talk about the reaction as to what Goody had to say, talking about this team. Remember, it was a little over a year ago, as a matter of fact, when he said it's time to start getting serious about winning championships. And we know that he went all in with Micah Parsons. We know they tried to kind of fill some of the holes with free agents. Some worked out, some didn't. So now we're going to get a kind of an insight as to the approach here and what it's like that they both him, Matt LaFleur, and Russ Ball, I should say, also having the contract extensions, their safety, their security. There's things that are there, at least for a little while. And it's all a results-oriented business. So kind of a self-evaluation period, and we'll see what the Wisconsin media and the Packers media asks him, and we'll also listen to what he does and doesn't say when it comes to his answers down here in the at the podium inside the convention center a little bit later on this afternoon. All right, let's do this. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got a lot more to get to. Out there over the weekend, this past Friday night, went down to Calderon Club, and I always talk about the spicy penne and the Bill Michaels, and I talk about the chicken marsala. I did not get that this time. Just in a mood for a pizza. We went in for a couple of drinks, and we had a couple of drinks at the bar, and we ended up getting the thin crust pizza, which is fantastic. And I said to him, just do me a favor, just pepperoni the hell out of it. Just love pepperoni. They did it. It was magnificent. Just a light and flaky and breakable crust on the thinnest of thin crusts. It was absolutely positively delicious. It was a great experience. Calderon Club, 838 Old World 3rd Street, right there in downtown Milwaukee, across the street from the Hyatt Hotel. That's on one side. Then next to it is the Pizzeria Napolitana, the authentic Napoli, Italy certified pizzeria. That is San Giorgio. He owns that place as well. You get two distinctly different forms of Italian, but it's both. I mean, both of them just 5-star gourmet, very, very, very good. Can't recommend them highly enough. 838 Old World 3rd Street, downtown Milwaukee. That's Calderon Club on one side, San Giorgio on the other.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back. We're going to take a quick break. We're out here in Indianapolis. We'll be back. More of the Bill Michaels Show after the top of the hour. Stay right where you're at.
This is the Wisconsin Sports Zone Update.
Well, Wisconsin is in Oregon. It's where they're going to take on the Ducks tomorrow night. They will do so relatively healthy, though reserve guard Jack Janicki likely going to miss the rest of the season after breaking his wrist last week. But otherwise, the team feeling good after a win over Iowa on Sunday. Nice bounce back from the loss at Ohio State last week. For Coach Greg Gard, once again showed how dangerous they can be when they play a certain way.
We got all hands on deck, and we're engaged and playing with some fire to us and some sense of urgency like we did today. We're a handful for teams, and we can play a lot of different ways because we have a variety of lineups that we can go to.
Wisconsin coming to the game sitting at 11-5 in conference play. Oregon is 3-13 in the Big Ten. Tip tomorrow night is set for 10 o'clock. Turning to the Bucks, they will host Miami tonight at Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee sitting 34-21 on the year, a game and a half out of the final play-in game spot in the standings. Tip tonight is set for 7.
Truck drivers, are you tired of your pay not matching your experience? At Schneider, our truck driver pay is designed so your years of service directly translate to higher earnings. Plus, longtime drivers qualify for larger sign-on bonuses and a larger selection of driving jobs. Pick from drive-in, intermodal, tanker, and dedicated opportunities. Ready to be rewarded for your hard work and expertise? Find the right driving job for you at SchneiderJobs.com. That's SchneiderJobs.com.
Well, the Packers have reportedly interviewed at least 4 people for their vacant special teams coordinator position. ESPN reported today that Cam Ackord from the Giants, Tom McMahon from the Raiders, Sam Sewell from the Cardinals, and Kyle Wilbur from the Saints have interviewed with Coach Matt LaFleur. Meanwhile, the NFL Combine getting underway in Indianapolis. 2 former Badgers are there, and Vinny Anthony and Mason Reiger. Wisconsin going to hold their pro day next Friday. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Welcome in. It's hour number 3. We're past the halfway point of the Bill Michaels Show here in Indianapolis, Indiana, as the Scouting Combine 2026 it is underway. The general managers are speaking. Goody's doing the private thing upstairs right now, and he's going to speak to everybody else coming up here in about 43 minutes. He should be taking the podium just on the other side of the convention center here. So you're going to hear at least that reaction coming up a little bit later on the program. Grant Bill's going to be over there, Mike Clemens, Bill Huber, and a lot of the national contingent, both paying attention contingent of the Packers as well as the local contingent as well that are all here on site. In the meantime, joining us here at the table, you've heard him on the show many times, Mike Renner for CBS Sports, NFL draft analyst here with us. How you been, man? Well, first of all, how's the family doing? Because they're all listening up in the Green Bay De Pere area now.
Yeah, family's doing great. They're up in Wisconsin. Just looking forward to the draft.
So, as a fan, what are you wanting them to grab?
Oh, I want a nose tackle, truthfully. Yeah. I think that was the thing that just was their Achilles heel too many times last year when it was, especially with how thin they were, they just didn't have someone that they could trust down in, down out to stop the run. That to me, you look at the final 4 teams and their defensive tackle positions. They were all probably 4 of the 5 best defensive tackle units in the NFL. And I think that is the secret sauce in today's NFL when you're really wanting to play light boxes, wanting to play 2 high safeties. Well, you need the guys up front to be able to do that consistently. And there were just games last year where Packers flat out couldn't. They would get, whether it was the Dallas game, whether it was the Ravens game at the end of the season, where they were just getting moved up front. So that has to change. And that's why I say nose tackle. So a big boy changed that.
Yeah, once they lost Devontae Wyatt, the void was clear. They just didn't have anybody behind him to be able to get that job done. What do you think of the offensive line?
I think there's a best 5 there. Now, we'll see what happens when the dust settles, who they re-sign. Do they cut Elgton Jenkins? We'll see how that ends up. But I do think there is a 5 there that's going to be capable. It's just, can they stay healthy? So you're going to need depth. You're probably going to need to target one, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft, because as 9 out of 10 teams in the NFL, your 6th offensive lineman ends up being a starter at some point during the season. So I think they're okay with their starting 5, but it's once they get to the depth this year that it's going to be a little worrisome.
Yeah, the team itself, I thought they don't have a ton of holes, but some of them are glaring. And then the guys you lose, I mean, I know everybody says, well, you can't use injuries as an excuse, but when you don't have the level of a Michael Parsons or a Tucker Kraft or a Devontae Wyatt or even the consistency of a Zach Tom, who was banged up pretty much on and off all season long, it hurt. There's no way to replace that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Seahawks roster in the playoffs, every single impact player was there. Every single guy. And that is kind of how it ends up going at the end of the year. It's rare to see a Super Bowl champion missing their best player, missing 2 of their best players, right? The way the Green Bay Packers were. So that's kind of just the way of the world in a 17-game schedule now. It is a war of attrition.
Right. When the Packers, when you look at that, and you mentioned it because defenses have become more prevalent, specifically in the last 2 Super Bowls. When you look at what Philadelphia did to Kansas City the year prior and then Seattle this year, there is a pendulum swing back towards stronger defenses. I mean, we saw the rules change to favor offenses, and then we went with all the creative offensive mind and play callers. But there is now this emphasis on defense. We've got to get it done up front, and then after that, you not many teams have 2 and 3 wideouts that can crush you. So if they don't have it, play better defense.
Yeah, it's defenses that swung back because of kind of what I was talking about earlier, the defensive lines throughout the NFL and the way DCs are deploying them is the biggest thing, is that these blitz packages, they're so creative, they're so difficult to stop that there's a secret kind of sauce that they have where it's these creative blitz packages combined with a structure on the back end that's very conservative. So it's kind of this nice marriage where even if that blitz doesn't get home, you're not getting killed with it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of teams have figured that out. A lot of teams are making you put together drives, which just makes, again, the offensive line probably that much more important to be able to pick up these things.
What did you think of the Packers secondary?
I think the cornerback position needs to be improved. I think they do a great job. They did a great job last year. We'll see how it goes this year in terms of protecting those corners, but I think they need to do better at corner. I think they knew that. That's why they went and signed Nate Hobbs, but they didn't have enough money to really get the guy to be that surefire upgrade. I think it's a deep cornerback class, though, in the draft. So, that first pick of theirs, if it's not a nose tackle, I think cornerback's the other position I'd be looking at.
What do you think? Go to the offensive line side, because I thought like you, if you got your best 5, but I think if you could upgrade, even if it's in free agency, I know everybody's after Tyler Linderbaum, and I would love to see him be their anchor, their center in the middle, and then build out from there with Banks and Belton. He's a terrific run blocker. He just needs to be a better pass blocker. But I think it could kind of matriculate out from there. I still not quite sure if I totally believe in Jordan Morgan as a left tackle, but that apparently is going to be his position. But I think there's a lot of flux up front right now.
No, I agree. It's a lot of question marks. And, you'd feel great about it. You'd feel great about signing someone if, Aaron Banks worked out last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of your play, that you thought you were getting that solid cornerstone there. And then him not turning into that is, I think, why the downfall happened and why you're kind of scrambling right now, because you can't even rely on the guy who's the highest paid guy on that offensive line. That's always a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, no doubt. The rest of the division, the Bears, I mentioned this earlier. I was talking to Jeff Joniak, and I said, so what do you think upcoming? And he said, well, we got to get better. And he agreed that you can't, the magic and the turnovers like that, the way they were prolific last year, those usually don't translate into the next season. So now you got to get better. But how good is the division in your eyes?
It's probably the toughest top to bottom division in football. I know the top of the West is probably stronger, but the worst team in the North is the best worst team in the NFL, whether it's the Vikings or I don't think the Lions are even in that consideration. So even though they had the tie for the worst record last year. So it's a very difficult division. And when you look around it, it's hard to see a lot of the teams getting worse, right? The Lions bring back a lot of injured guys they had last year. All the Bears' offensive weapons are on their rookie contracts. Usually guys get better over the course of that, and they'll probably add more to their defense. The Vikings, it was first year J.J. McCarthy. They probably went about as bad as they could at the quarterback position, and they still had an above 500 record. So everyone should be seemingly improving. There's no one who's really cleaning house, has to cut bait. So it's going to be a dogfight again next year.
Were you surprised that LaFleur stayed, that they kept him?
I was a little. Yeah, I will be honest. I thought kind of this was just same story, different year. It felt like you went all in for the same results. And it felt like either, where does the sort of hammer fall to this roster? Because someone's screwing up, right? You can't keep having the exact same season seemingly and then keep thinking it's going to change. It felt like they were in a similar situation to the Bills, who obviously made big changes there. And so I thought that's what we were going to see after the season. But, the offense isn't the problem, right? The offense has been successful in the LaFleur era. And usually when that's your side of the ball, that gives you more leeway as a head coach.
They chose, in my opinion, continuity over change.
Yeah.
Because it's the only offense Jordan Love knows. Obviously, you knew Hafley was going to be gone. You didn't want to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand why they did what they did. I'm all in now. I'm hope that they win and they're successful and everything works out. I've said for a long time, I'll be the 1,000-pound gorilla if it's wash, rinse, repeat, because then what did you do? But I think with a new contract like this, doesn't it usually buy coaches 2 years after an extension?
It does usually. And it is easy to say, grass is greener, right? A lot of teams I think would kill for LaFleur to be their head coach. So,
right.
There is a,
but that should not be a prerequisite for you not to fire a guy.
I don't,
just because he's going to get hired by 5 other teams.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But, maybe guys in the locker room fought for it. Maybe there's more going on. And again, kind of how we started this off, they were banged up. They did not have their two of their best players down the stretch. It's hard to really factor that in with would things have been different otherwise.
Right. The rest of the division, you talked about the Detroit Lions, you talked about the Bears, but if you kind of reshuffle that deck and you go back and you say, okay, now going into next season, do you still have the same level of confidence that the Bears are going to win the division?
No, I didn't think.
I don't either.
I didn't think they were the best divisional team in the division last year. They
were 2-4 in the division.
They just had easily the easiest schedule of anyone in the division. That's kind of how it works. Now, truthfully, I think the Lions are probably the favorite because they're going to have the easiest, the easier schedule of anyone there. And that's just how the beauty of NFL scheduling and why it leads to so much parity. But we saw it with the Patriots this year. They had a cakewalk to the playoffs. Like some teams, not every schedule is created the same. So I think the Lions are due for a big bounce back year. I don't see them being any worse than they were this past year. Just they're not going to play one of the hardest schedules in the NFL again.
And they're going to have a different offensive coordinator that maybe is a little bit better than what they had this past year. Draft-wise, so you think corner is going to be a loaded position. What else? What else is going to be pretty loaded? Because the Packers, I don't, maybe a wide receiver at some point, just if they lose Romeo Doubs. But beyond that, I think offensive line and defense is going to be a real concentration for this team.
Yeah, I think it's a good wide receiver class. I don't think it's a great wide receiver class. The position I'd call the strongest is the linebacker. I think if Quay Walker does leave, you could probably find his replacement late on day 2. It's just a great linebacker class. There's probably 8 to 10 starters in this class. early on in their careers, which you don't say every year. So that's the position I'm looking at. That's like, they might draft one just because the value is going to be so good at that position. So linebacker, solid receiver class, solid corner class. And then I think there are actually a good amount of nose tackles. I think if you want a run defending nose tackle, there will be names for you even heading into day 3.
Great stuff, man. Appreciate you stopping by and hanging out. I'm glad maybe the family was listening.
Yeah, for sure.
Back home. Absolutely.
Back home.
So there you go. So Mike Renner joining us here at the table. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to come back and going to get back into some other stuff. We've got Quinn McLean, in case you missed him in the first hour of the program. He's going to be back with us. Got Grant Bills here, and then Goody's going to be speaking and all kinds of good stuff coming up here in Indianapolis. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more of the Bill Michaels Show down here in Indy. We'll be back right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket, this is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. It's the Bill Michaels Show. Bill will be right back. He ran to a room. He ran to a place that humans must go to every once in a while. If they've had some coffee or some Diet Coke or some Gatorade, can fill in the blanks. He'll be back with us in just a couple of moments. I know we're going to have Quinn McLean joining us from Sumer Sports. Mike Renner is the best. What a prince of a man, and probably the best draft analyst in the sport. He's really good, and I'm going to connect with him at some point this week on my show. I really struggle. It's like, tell me about this class of nose tackles. you know, and a draft analyst will be like, well, I really like, you know, Mike Davis. He's out of Auburn and he's, you know, he runs the 40. And I just, it's not that it's not interesting. It's just, you need to sell it a little bit. You need to sexy it up. And Mike does that. But, you know, I whenever I talk to draft people like Mike later this week on my show, I'm just gonna be like, hey dude, tell me like 2 or 3 players that you would do backflips for if the Packers drafted. I don't even care about the position. I don't even care about the round. Like, get me excited about something. Get me buying to something. So appreciate Mike. We're going to hear from Brian Gutekunst. He takes the podium in about a half hour. So when Bill gets back in the cockpit here, I'm going to, you know, maneuver my way over there, get some photos and videos for Bill's social channel. So like his Facebook page and his Instagram page and TikTok and all of that. And we'll get that content up. And then in the final hour of the show, Mike Clemens, Bill Huber, will bring back a whole cast of journalists who are over there throwing questions at him to kind of recap the thing and to talk about what Brian Gutekunst had to say. Bill, you made it back safely. You might have to turn your mic back on. You made it back safely.
That's a run.
Well, I told people that you went.
That's a run.
You went to a room that
you go to the bathroom.
Okay, there you
go. There's no time, you know, and it was funny because at the bottom of the last hour, I'm like, oh, I really got to go to the bathroom. And I didn't make it. Well, then the next 2 or 3 breaks are all really short.
Not long enough.
They're not long. But this is a run, man. This is because at the other place out in the Super Bowl, we had it right behind us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, man, I was just like, man, I drank all that water this morning. I got to go. So,
you know, see, you sound winded right now. This is nothing new to me, though. I'll be in the studio back in Madison. I'll hear you come back in the air. And I'm like, what was he doing? And then you'll shoot me a message. I had to go change a load of laundry. I did. I ran the garbage cans out to the end of the driveway. So this is nothing new.
This is nothing. No, this is no big deal. But this was, and then here's the problem is that you're in the bathroom and you're like, okay, I got to go. So you get done, and then, you know, in walks 5 people that, you know.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing? It's like, I'm on the air. I got to go.
Yep.
And then, you know, then there's always the joke. You're on the air in here. You must have a really SE show, you know. It's like, thank you very much.
I'm going to use that on someone this week.
How are we looking? So anyway, that was my trip all the way to the other side of the convention center just to go to the bathroom. So
I'm glad it was exciting.
It was thrilling. It was a terrific moment in radio.
Good.
So you're getting ready to head over to see Goody here because he speaks in about 20 minutes.
Yep. I'll get you some pictures. I'll get you some audio and some video. I'll try to get right to the front of the scrum. I'll try to get right up there at his grill.
There you go.
I'll throw some hardcore questions at him.
There you go. So we got that coming up, and then in the last hour. We're gonna talk to Mike, and you mentioned Bill Huber and whoever else we happen to talk to, because the week is going to be full. We've got so many people that are here, and I mentioned this earlier in the program. We'll talk with Jeff Joniak. He said he's going to come on the show. We'll talk with Paul Allen, the voice of the Vikings. He's going to come on the show. Greg Cosell is going to come on the show. We've got some of the guys floating around from Milwaukee and Green Bay that are here that cover the team on the regular. So we'll talk to a few of those guys. Some of these guys, some of the TV guys, they're here today, and that's it. Like, the minute Goody's done, they're gone. They're on their way back to Wisconsin.
They're here to get the guys at the podium, and that's about it. So Ben Johnson, John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, Brian Gutekunst, all with some sort of Wisconsin ties or rivalry ties. I listened to Brad Holmes, the Lions general manager, for a couple of minutes. So I think a lot of the TV and media people, they're here to get that footage, and they're in the car, and they're probably going to edit it on the way home. Try to have it on the air tonight.
That's exactly what they'll do, is they'll get it on the air tonight, and then they're back. Because even Bill Huber's not staying. Bill's down here for basically Goody and the little one-on-one scrum that they get a little earlier, and then that's it. That's the end of it.
The little hotel room sneaky link with Brian Gutekunst. Why do they have to do it in the hotel room?
The invite only.
They have meeting rooms here.
Right?
It's a convention center.
Well, that's just it. They got a convention. The Health and Safety and Wellness Convention is going on here on the other side of the building for the state of Indiana. So there's about 2,000 people that are in the other. This is a big convention center, and they're in the other side of the convention center. The Health, Wellness, and Safety group from the state of Indiana are all here today too.
In between the shows, I'm going to go over that way, see what they have to eat, see if they have sloppy joes, or I brought some high vis, so I'll try to.
Okay. Well, there's a few things that are around here, but that was the one thing is they don't supply us with water, so I went to buy a water this morning, and the lady looked at me and she said, "Yeah, that'll be $8. $8 for a bottle of water. Holy mackerel." What have we come to? So there you go. So anyway, a little bit earlier today, I had a chance to catch up with Quinn McLean, and he's also with Sumer Sports. But for some of you on the network, you don't get a chance to listen to it in the first hour of the program. So we wanted to make sure we played it for you because it's really, really good stuff when you get into the analytics. And we talked a little bit about the Packers, talked a little bit about Jordan Love, talked about the what's down here in general, what it is they are looking for. So this was Quinn McLean from a little bit earlier today. Take a listen. Friends from Sumer Sports, always very gracious to come over and say hello to us. Quinn McLean from Sumer Sports joining us here. First of all, thanks for coming over, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This, for a guy that does all the analytics, this is kind of like, kids in a candy store for you, right?
Yeah. And it's almost crazy that the combine has evolved as much as it has, because from a data perspective, we just received the file at the end of the events and put it into our models and stuff to separate from that. But I think there's cool storylines that you see every single year of guys opting into the combine and trying to improve their draft position versus not. And we also look at that data as well as guys that are trying to, the uncertainty around the draft of trying to rise and hopefully not fall.
Right. So let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. Prime example of a guy that everybody thought he was going to be a first rounder, thought he could be the first overall pick, ends up going, fifth round? By the time it was all said and done, didn't get a chance to start not once, not twice, until the second quarterback didn't work out. And then they said, let's give you a shot. And he was okay. He wasn't great. So give me Shedeur Sanders and what happened to him last year.
Yeah, I think you really get into the mock draft that we have is very uncertain at this point in the season. And so when you're looking into the combine and trying to project a guy, like obviously there's some big names from college that you're, Heisman Trophy winners that you're trying to project or Heisman Trophy candidates. But like the mock draft has some signal as far as how good a player is. And that's a guy that was mock top 10, but like very low signal from that. And I think what the public doesn't realize is a lot of these NFL teams have already had their draft meetings going into the combine. So they're just like nudging a guy up the draft board. They're not shooting him up per se. What's shooting a guy up is the mock draft information from public insiders that they're finally starting to release some of that behind the scenes scouting information to the public. And so I think with Shedeur, you saw a lot of close to the vest of behind the scenes scouting information that wasn't released, that the public never caught up on. And I think it's an interesting tale of why the mock drafts is so uncertain and why you have to look at a specific people who have a little bit more insider information.
I pride myself on the eyeball test, watching a guy throughout the season. I don't get a chance to watch every college game, but we saw enough of Shedeur, and I said, very athletic, throws a lot of quick outs, can scramble and make some things happen downfield, but not as accurate as you would want and not as great a footwork as you would want in the pocket. Very a raw guy. So when they kept saying he was going to be a top 5, top 10, and Dion's telling us that he's going to be the best pick, and I'm like, I don't see that at all. And the film doesn't lie.
Yeah, and one thing we can look at from analytics measure and for Shedeur is we look at completion percentage over expectation. And so what we do from our data is we look at the proximity of the players in the field. If you watch a lot of Colorado film, there are a lot of guys throwing on into slants, in space, and so he's getting a lot of manufactured yards from his accuracy, which makes his accuracy numbers from a raw perspective look good. But the receivers, if we remember them, they were super fast. Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, that's now with the Panthers. Like those are speedster that he can just dump it off to and look into space. We see Brock Purdy have that same effect in the NFL. It's like find your window, let the athletes do the rest of the work. And that was, I think, it's hard from a guy like Shedeur to be successful. The other thing from an analytics measure that we knew was going to struggle for them is he just in high pressure situations where the edge rushers were barreling in on him, he just took a lot of sacks. And that's like an NFL indicator that we in the data community can see as the most predictive success is when you're pressured, are you able to evade that sack from a scramble perspective, getting the ball off? And that's something he really struggled in college minor league.
That shifts me into Jordan Love. Jordan Love this year, one of the best quarterbacks in the pocket. I mean, when he didn't have pressure in his face, he was going to chew you up, spit you out. Still really good with pressure. Not as good, which no quarterback is as good, but give me your thoughts on Love and where he stands right now.
Yeah, I just pulled up our analytics dashboard here, and I can kind of walk you through some of it, but I think the data kind of shows this perfectly for Jordan Love in 2025. And so accuracy under pressure, we have him as a mismatch. Like, we think he's a liability in that. But poise, in terms of staying in the pocket and getting a pass off while getting hit, he's excellent in that. And so I think it's like, his barometer when that pocket is closing in, I think he gets a little bit rushed until the last minute he gets the pass off. I think if he was more to set the protections and pre-snap and anticipate that pressure a little bit more, he'd improve a little bit as a passer. The other thing for him is like we think he's really good in terms of his touch on the ball, so getting receivers open and trying that. But like he's got to anticipate the pressure pre-snap to plan for the whole sequence of the plays. I think he's reacting to what the defenses is and playing hero ball.
Not being proactive, he's being more reactive.
Yeah, he's playing hero ball. It's not like sustainable for him.
Yeah, and that was one of the things we had talked about. Like if he gets, and when we say pressure, I don't mean like here comes the blitz. I mean like when the pocket starts to collapse or one side isn't getting the protection and he's starting to move on the run. He's a pretty good quarterback, but if he doesn't see that pressure coming, he's a guy that can be off the mark, and his completion percentage drops dramatically.
Yeah, we have him as a 6 in our consumer traits is gets the job done in terms of accuracy on the move, and that's design move type thing. So it's like if it's not design or he's not reactive to it, I think he falls apart a little bit. But I think there's play calling that can help him out in terms of the pressure to make that easier for him.
We all know that there's these levels, these tiers of quarterbacks in the National Football League, and this year Matthew Stafford was the gold standard. We know a guy like Josh Allen has always been up there. Lamar Jackson's won some MVPs and such. Where in this tier would you put Jordan Love? Is he just below that? Or is he, because I've always said there's the excellent quarterback that could be on their way to a Hall of Fame career. Then there's really good quarterbacks that haven't taken that next step. Then they're good. Then you got your below average, and it goes down from there.
I'd say he's good to impact, and I think there's some things that the Packers can do to draft to help him out a little bit. The offensive line, I think, is something that people have talked about for a little bit. You put some younger people on the offensive line, I think, in terms of setting protection, so that his blinder is that he's not doing well pre-snap. By having some talented offensive linemen, I think you can help him get into that impact player where create those explosive plays, that improv type of playmaking.
Right. Tell me about Caleb Williams. He had a hell of a season this past year. I was talking with Jeff Joniak, who's the voice of the Bears earlier, and Jeff was telling me, kind of saying the same thing. It's like it's tough to translate and take over from one year to the next, the turnovers and the magic.
Yep.
You got to get good. Now you've learned how to win. Now you got to get good. What does Caleb Williams show you that says he took a big leap? Or maybe he didn't. I mean, he took a big leap, obviously, in accuracy in late, game comebacks. But what does he need to do to be a better quarterback that, has that ability to be able to do that?
And what we just talked about with Schneider, he took a lot of sacks in college. And I think he was looking at DBs be like, I have a better arm than you. I'm going to throw it, and you try to make the play on that. Yeah. There's a lot of film plays from his days at USC that he just threw over a defensive back because he's like, I'm more talented than you. Right. We saw that show up in his rookie year where it's now you've got talent of that. Now you got to adjust. I think that's still an area that hopefully Ben Johnson, as to the second year working together, he improves in that. In our decision-making metric, he's still a liability, but in terms of our sack avoidance, we have him as an impact player. So I think trending in the right direction, like evading the pressure, but now you got to make the smart decisions, the most optimal plays.
Obviously, you've got really good quarterback play in Detroit. You don't necessarily worry about that, but the Lions themselves struggled this year. I think mainly when you look at the offensive line, right when Ragnow left, retired, and then tried to come back and wasn't able to because of the physical, they really had a void in the middle, which I think also was the Packers' issue. Packers tried to move Elton Jenkins down, didn't work out. They bring in Sean Ryan, not your prototypical center. They, like you had said, they need to mix and match their offensive line a little bit. I think they had offensive line issues in Detroit.
Yeah, and I think it's a new system in terms of offensive play callers. They had 2 different play callers that year that I think when you're trying to set protection schedules of a new play caller, I think that can be difficult. Although Jared Goff, we've seen in multiple stops, he's been successful in different places he's gone to. So I do give him a pass for that. I hope that Dan Campbell takes more of that charge over the offseason and putting that playbook and not letting it up to someone else's interpretation. And the nice thing for Detroit is, like, in terms of interior offensive line talent, this is a pretty good draft for people to go after and start to build in there.
Well, we're kind of thinking that maybe the Packers might go in that direction as well, both offensively and defensively. They're going to need a nose tackle if you bring in, obviously, Jonathan Gannon, who does to run more of a 3-4.
Yep.
And when you do that, you need that nose tackle guy. Devontae Wyatt's coming back off of that busted up ankle, but he's not your nose tackle. He's more of a defensive tackle, endish type of guy. So if they can find another piece of beef in the middle with Micah Parsons, and then who knows with Lucas. What did you guys think of Lucas Van Ness coming out, by the way, when you guys started to kind of evaluate the process and you looked at his play and what he could or couldn't be?
So I always get a little bit hesitant, having built these college college to pro projection models of guys that have 1 year bursts in terms of production, and that was Lucas Van Ness. And Iowa has the thing where you have to be a senior, or at least if there's no seniors, a junior as a start. And him coming off in that bench into a rotational role at Iowa gave me a little bit of pause. But in terms of like traits, I think he had that to be a starter. I think he looked like a JJ Watt in terms of coming into the room, but you're wondering if that production would follow. And so his development to the NFL, I think, is on schedule of a guy that only has 1 year of production into the NFL. I think it's tough in some ways to bet on traits. If there's no production, we've seen, Shamar Stewart from the Bengals was a good example of that. Freak athlete, very inconsistent play in college. Takes a little bit longer for him to develop as a pass rusher. I think that's something you're seeing similar with Lucas Van Ness, and last year, obviously very successful for him.
Yeah, he had a much better season last year, specifically at the end of the season when he came back, and you had Michael Parsons go down, and they really kind of relied on him. I do want to go over to the Vikings and JJ McCarthy, because that was a season. It was terrible. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, the Vikings are now kind of really scratching their head as to what the hell do they do when Daniel Jones leaves and has success, and now Sam Darnold, who you cut loose, also goes off and wins the Super Bowl. Yep. You got to be thinking to yourself, oh, but there, for the grace of God, should I have gone? So what do you think about J.J. McCarthy, and what kind of a leap he needs to take in this upcoming season?
He just crumbles under pressure, and like he's got a similar to what we're talking about Jordan Love, although Jordan Love has controlled playmaking ability to extend the plays. JJ McCarthy leans too much into that, and it becomes a little bit chaotic. I think if you are a guy that can adjust, one thing that I was thinking was surprising in terms of our metrics of he was a liability as an accurate person in design rollout plays, and that's design rollout plays, something that should speak to his ability. And I think if you can't design him to get away from the pressure, you have some problems, and he needs to anticipate the speed of the NFL, and he hasn't done that yet. Yeah, that's boy, did they overestimate his talent coming out of college. Yeah, I liked him, and I thought he might be the most ready because of his maturity after winning a national title. And he looked like it early on in preseason, and then just you could see it. That first game against Chicago, he looked good, and he ramped up, and they go back and win that game. And then you thought, okay, now if that's your jumping off point, that's a hell of a place to start. And it just never materialized. It was so now he was banged up, but it was so up and down for a season for him. Yeah, I'm curious the Vikings what their offseason plan is. They've got to find a contingency plan. I don't think that they have enough chips in their war chest to go get a Kyler Murray, but or a Malik Willis to fulfill their QB needs. But you definitely need a dependable veteran to shore up. I don't know if that's a Marcus Mariota. How much did you like Malik Willis? Because he just didn't work out in Tennessee. So they get him, for a couple of draft choice, and you're like, okay, no big deal. But when he came in, he just showed this unbelievable athleticism, this accuracy, this tenacity. And you're like, where was all that in Tennessee? Well, I think that's the expectation of, again, using an objective framework to that is what do you think of the value of a third, fourth round quarterback's going to be in the NFL? I think starting in Tennessee is high par of what we'd expect of a third, fourth round quarterback. Having a longer development, I think he's on schedule from what I would expect of a day 2, day 3 quarterback. And so I think if we look at the hit rate of what we think a day 2, day 3 quarterback, I think he's been pretty successful. Right. But I think we put him into a day 1 first round quarterback bucket, and I don't think that's unfair to his development. Right. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. So here, what are you specifically looking for here at the Combine with these guys? Yeah, so I think from our data, talking about mock draft information, this is to me, the start of the season. We start to get more signal on it. I think what's cool about this year is we have guys opting into the drills, and there's been a trend for about 5 years of decline in every single position of guys opting out because they've had more certainty onto where they're going to go into the draft. And I think the draft process was a little bit better in terms of the grades they're getting from the NFL. With NIL guys coming back, there's a lot more uncertainty from that round 2 to round 5 range that is a little bit from a compensation standpoint. Guys can get that in college if they wait a little bit and develop to try to move that into the first round. And so that's created ripple effects in their data. That's created more uncertainty. So guys are realizing that, go out and chase it in the Combine, try to improve your draft position. I don't think it's going to move the needle as much as people think to what NFL teams think of the guy. Yeah. But it'll at least pop up to be now I know this guy is 15th overall. I had him 20th overall. So if I really like this guy on the board that's there, I might have to make some moves to go get him. Yeah. Quinn, great to talk to you, man. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for stopping by.
There you go. Quinn McLean of Sumer Sports, who joined us over here at the table a little bit earlier today. And it's great to get that perspective and all those analytics and all the things that when we come to the combine and we talk about this kind of stuff and we say these are the things that you get that we don't get on the regular. You know, we love getting into the numbers and all that kind of stuff and the analytics when we start to talk about the season and the players and such, but you don't get that on the regular. Let's do this. We'll step out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We got a lot more to get to. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Buzzard Billy's on Pearl Street in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Remember, they're in that 1860s old brick hotel. Buzzard Billy's and all the great food and everything they have to offer with a Cajun flair downstairs. The Starlight Lounge is upstairs, and that is where you just kind of feel like the Rat Pack's going to come out at any point in time and start crooning to you as you sip a really classic martini or something creative. Whatever it happens to be, the Starlight Lounge has it. Buzzard Billy's downstairs, Starlight Lounge upstairs. Two great places under one great roof right there on Pearl Street in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
It is all under one roof, and that is Potawatomi. Two tremendous locations, one in Carter, Wisconsin, one on Canal Street in Milwaukee. But Potawatomi.com is the place to go, whether you're going to the sports book, where that's the best sports book in the Midwest, hands down. I mean, it's better than the majority of the sports books out in Vegas. When we were out in Vegas a few years back for Super Bowl, and what they have put together there is just one of the Midwest's finest, to say the very least, with the massive, massive screen, the terrific food, the service, everything that goes along with it. That's Potawatomi. Not to mention they've got restaurants upstairs and different bars and lounges and all the gaming, obviously. And they've got live music, whether it's in Rock and Brews or the DJ thumping upstairs as well. So much under one roof, and all you got to do is check it out. Go to Potawatomi.com. That is Potawatomi.com for all the fun, the entertainment, and everything that goes along with it. Again, that is Potawatomi.com. While we got a minute, I do want to address this. Because a lot of people chiming in about this today, and if you didn't see this last night, it made it into many of the statewide papers today in Wisconsin, and that is the Green Bay Packers are sending out information to ticket holders regarding 2026 and their season tickets. Some of you have been eliminated. And if you're listening to us and you have not attended games now for a couple of years, and you've basically been selling your tickets off to Ticketmaster and whomever, even though there's some preferable avenues for you to go sell those tickets, the Packers look at it as you've held on to them just to hold on to them. And they are no longer going to allow that. So it says, and you're going to get a mailing that's going to include the policy on the use of season tickets from the Packers. It says, if you are a season ticket holder and your sole intent is to sell these tickets, you will no longer be a season ticket holder. We want our fans to know home field advantage is really important to us. Now, Aaron Popke, the director of public affairs, said this the other day at Lambeau. We're extremely proud of the home field advantage and the energy that the Packers fans bring to game day. Our players and coaches talked about that over the years. That's something we certainly want to maintain and also build upon. Now, the Packers won't say how many actual ticket accounts or total number of tickets are going to be affected by this process of elimination. But they did say they took about 1,000 people off the season ticket waiting list by issuing the reclaimed tickets. The Packers have over 38,000 season ticket holders on accounts and 155,000 people on a waiting list. That's 99% of the fans that the Green Bay Packers have renew their tickets annually. So getting off the waiting list, it can take decades for you to get there. That's why people start putting their kids on the waiting list when they're born. But the bottom line is that if you, and look, we've all noticed it. We've said this before. Originally, it was, well, let's blame the Milwaukee, the gold package ticket holders. You can't say that anymore because some of the biggest games that we saw the most incoming fans for were not Milwaukee season ticket holders. So these look, it's on everybody's bucket list. Everybody wants to go to Lambeau Field. We all know that, okay? Especially if you can come there and see your team play. We all know that. And we have seen some games recently at Lambeau. It hasn't been the same home field advantage that we've seen in the past. It's been pretty well packed with a lot of incoming fans. And
Bill,
go ahead.
Bill, you know how my parents actually have the gold package tickets because my grandpa put in for them, I think 80 years ago. Well, after he had passed away, they got brought on, and my dad has them. Well, if he sells the tickets, and this is just an unreal thing to me. We have 4 tickets. He can profit $400, $500 off of each ticket. So you're talking about a $2,000 swing. Now, I know we don't want to sell them. I know this is a problem, but when the market is going this way, I can see how season ticket holders are like, I could use an extra $2,000. I'm going to sell these tickets. So I don't know what the right thing to do is. And obviously we want to have our home field advantage, but I think people need to understand the type of money that you're talking about.
Right. No, I get it. And the Packers are basically saying 2 things. One is we want the home field advantage to be the home field advantage. And 2, they don't want you profiting off of their product. And, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, we all have done it. Put it that way. We've all had tickets. We all sold tickets. What they're looking at is mainly families that do not go to games. You have season tickets, but you have season tickets for the sole purpose of turning around and selling them and making a profit. And it's basically kind of an under-the-table type of business that you're running off of their business.
And I think that's completely fair because if it's a guy who's maybe buying people out, hey, transfer me these or just keep them and I'll pay you $500 and then I'll make the money from the rest of them. There might even be some type of broker to this.
Right. No, I completely agree. Part of it is sometimes the Packers will say, well, sell them back to us and we'll resell them. And that way we can kind of guarantee them and you're not giving them to somebody that's going to be rowdy or whatever. And then the Packers make their money and they can kind of control it. And you're doing the right thing, supposedly through their eyes. But we all know, look, there's a lot of people that go to the secondary markets. And the secondary market's got to make money too. But we all know that it becomes kind of a free-for-all. But there are some, and selling them every now and then, no big deal. I don't think it's any big deal. If you got 8 games a year and you can only make, 6 of them, 7 of them, and you're selling 1 game a year, I don't think they're coming after you. But there are people who are selling their entire set of tickets. The minute they get them, they're selling them back off to brokers and making a ton of money on them. And then the brokers take the advantage as to whether or not the game is going to go up or down and what the market's going to bear by the time it's all said and done. And that way the families don't have to worry about it. And that's what they're starting to crack down on. And they see these people that are because they monitor this. They actually have people in computer programs, and the NFL does, that monitors the tickets, what's available and what are the numbers in the rows and all that kind of stuff are available. And when you start to see the same seats, the same set of tickets every week that are on the market, that's when they're going, okay, these people they're making a profit off of us, and they're not even going to the games anymore. So that's what they're going after. So if that's 1,000 people, while it sounds like a big number, in the grand scheme of 77, 78, 79,000 people, that's not terrible as far as them going after everybody that sold a ticket this year. But 1,000 people that just basically profit off the Green Bay Packers, I get it. I understand it. That's their business. That's their right. That's their business. So they own those tickets until you own those tickets, I guess. So what they're going to do is just take them back. And if you're kind of doing the illegality thing, I guess, they're going to basically say, thanks, but no thanks. I don't know if they give you your seat licensing back. I don't know if they give you that and say, here, we're going to give you the fee back once you're off the list, or if they just say, no, we're not giving it to you this year. Thanks for being a part of the Packers organization. We'll talk to you later. I wonder if they're going to do that. I don't know. But I know they're going to start cracking down on it harder this season. And there was quite a few times when walking through the press box. See, in the press box, and you've been there, Kate, right behind where I sit is a lot of the Packers dignitaries. All the people that work the game day stuff.
Well, you have the prime seat, Bill.
Yeah, I know. All the people that work the game day stuff. And some like Aaron Popke, who I read his quotes in the paper. He sits right behind us. And a lot of the Packers media people, a lot of the Packers social media staff, everybody sits right behind us. Now, the Packers upper brass, Ed Policy, Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, their families, all that, they all sit in a suite down from the broadcast booth. So they're all up there. And when you're walking the halls and you're seeing prior to a game, like Brian Gutekunst is down on the field and, talking to players and coaches, whatever. And then he comes up and then you're seeing these guys say, man, that's a lot of Lions fans or Vikings fans or Bears fans or 49ers fans or whatever it is. Man, that's a lot of fans in here. How'd they all get in here? That's when they start to go, okay, who's all selling these tickets? And they're cracking down on it. And I've said this before, like if you're going to sell your tickets, one, sell them privately. Two, because then they can't monitor that. And two, try to get it to a Packers fan. And then they don't care. But, man, there's been a lot of incoming opponent fans at Lambeau Field over the last couple of years. So much so that I'm pretty regular now at taking video of the stadium prior to the game. And some teams that have very distinct colors, you can tell. If you got a team like when the Lions are there in the Honolulu blue, when, a team like, I don't know, Kansas City or San Francisco or, Atlanta or whatever, when you get that red in there, it's opposing fans. You can see purple. You can see it. You can see those fans that are pouring in. We had, this past year? Was it Cincinnati, I think? You had a bunch of Cincinnati fans. Or what was the other one? Oh, Indianapolis. Oh, no, not Indianapolis. I'm sorry. Not Indianapolis. Carolina fans. You had a bunch of Carolina fans in there this year.
I remember you saying that during the post-game show.
Yeah, bunch of Carolina fans in there. You could clearly tell because they're all wearing blue. Same thing. You always get a lot of Minnesota fans, always get a lot of Chicago fans. There was a lot of Baltimore fans there this year. So that's what they're looking at.
I think it's easier to tell in the warmer games because then someone will just have a T-shirt or a sweatshirt on rather than when somebody puts their coat on, you have no idea.
Yeah, you don't see it as much in the latter portions of the season. I agree with that.
Which doesn't mean that it's not there. I mean, even at that Bears game that we were covering, Bill, it didn't look like there were a ton of Bears fans, but the energy is so different when the Bears score. And like I said, I've been going to games for now 15 years, and I never remember it like that.
Right. No, I agree. You can hear it. I mean, it was audible through the windows up in the press box. So that's what they're cracking down on. They're going to say, nah, baby, nah, no more. So if you're doing it, I would suggest you not. If you get your tickets this year, look, like I said, a pair or two here and there, no big deal. But if you're selling off quite a bit, say more than half of your tickets each and every year, and you're putting them on a secondary market, they're going to find you. And they're eventually going to say, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to talk to you later. And they're going to move on to somebody else. So there you have it. Let's do this. We'll step out really late for a break. Step out, take a quick break, come back. More of the Bill Michaels Show live in Indianapolis.
Grab the dial and crank it up, baby, because Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee is spinning its Winning Hits collection. Over the next 3 months, you could win a share of over $1 million in prizes. On top of thousands in cash and reward play, you could win one of 3 new Ford vehicles in the grand finale drawings on March 27th. Just play with your rewards card to earn entries. Press play on the Winning Hits collection, only at Potawatomi. More info online. Must be 21 and a rewards member to play.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. We are live. We are here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and at the NFL Scouting Combine, just about at the top of the hour. Brian Gutekunst speaking as we speak. And this portion of our program, by the way, brought to you by our friends over there at LD's Barbecue, ldsbbq.com. That's ldsbbq.com, right there on East Troy, on Main Street in East Troy, Wisconsin. And also, they still have chances available for the brand new Harley Davidson they're giving away this year, and all the proceeds go to the Thin Blue Line. It's a fantastic organization, but you also get yourself some really, really good award-winning barbecue down at LD's Barbecue on Main Street in East Troy, Wisconsin. We have still got another hour yet to go here inside the Convention Center, Indianapolis, Indiana. It's the 2026 version of the NFL Scouting Combine. We got more coming up right after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Wisconsin is in Oregon. It's where they're going to take on the Ducks tomorrow night. They will do so relatively healthy, though reserve guard Jack Janicki likely going to miss the rest of the season after breaking his wrist last week. But otherwise, the team feeling good after a win over Iowa on Sunday. Nice bounce back from the loss at Ohio State last week. For Coach Greg Gard, once again showed how dangerous they can be when they play a certain way.
We got all hands on deck, and we're engaged and playing with some fire to us and some sense of urgency like we did today. We're a handful for teams, and we can play a lot of different ways because we have a variety of lineups that we can go to.
Wisconsin coming to the game sitting at 11-5 in conference play. Oregon is 3-13 in the Big Ten. Tip tomorrow night is set for 10 o'clock. Turning to the Bucks, they will host Miami tonight at Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee sitting 34-21 on the year, a game and a half out of the final play-in game spot in the standings. Tip tonight is set for 7.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Well, the Packers have reportedly interviewed at least 4 people for their vacant special teams coordinator position. ESPN reported today that Cam Akcord from the Giants, Tom McMahon from the Raiders, Sam Sewell from the Cardinals, and Kyle Wilbur from the Saints have interviewed with Coach Matt LaFleur. Meanwhile, the NFL Combine getting underway in Indianapolis. 2 former Badgers are there, and Vinny Anthony and Mason Reiger. Wisconsin going to hold their pro day next Friday. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Welcome in the final hour of show number 1 down here in Indianapolis as we're here all the way through Friday. And it is the NFL Scouting Combine for 2026. And we are so glad that you are with us. And hopefully you've enjoyed day 1 where it's only going to get better, you would assume, throughout the week as we have more and more guests. Right now, Brian Gutekunst speaking. And the minute he is done speaking, we'll be joined over here at the table. Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated is going to be here. We're going to be talking with, who else? We're going to be talking with Mike Clemens will be here. Grant will obviously be back over here and such. So we'll be talking to all these guys coming up here in just a little bit to get more reaction from Brian Gutekunst and what he had to say at the podium. And he's taken 20, 25 minutes, something like that, to speak. He started speaking about 17 minutes ago. So I got to thinking about the next 10 to 15. He's going to be wrapping it up. And then we'll start to be joined over here at the table by, those that are here covering this before they start to head back. Welcome into the program, though. Hopefully you've enjoyed today. A lot of informative stuff. Mike Renner from CBS Sports was here. Sam Brucchaus from Sumer Sports. Quinn McLean from Sumer Sports here today as well. Mike Clemens joined us a little bit earlier, talking a little bit about what he gleaned from earlier this morning. Later on today, now I'm going to get off the air here in a little bit, and that's when the scouting begins, at least for our end of the business, as we're going to be heading out of here. I know Grant's going to stay here. He's got his show, the Wisco Sports Show, and which, by the way, if you listen to that on Wisco Sports Zone app, he'll probably have the Brian Gutekunst press conference coming up. So if you want to hear it first there, you can. If not, we're going to have it for you tomorrow in its entirety on my show again. But I'm going to spend some time with some of the people from the NFL, going over to a little haunt nearby and maybe have a beverage or two, and you start putting your ear to the ground. And this is where things start to kind of mix. And the funny thing is, and I was talking about this, alluding to this a little bit earlier, there's the tampering period that's allowed in the National Football League. That'll be coming up once, you get before free agency. We all know that. It begins to happen. But really, this is where the stuff starts to go. When you get general managers all behind the curtains and all in the bars and in the restaurants and at Tony's and at St. Elmo's and at Nikki Blaine's smoking cigars and hanging out and doing their thing, this is where they all start to get together and they all start to talk a little bit about what their needs are and what would it take to get this guy and what would it take to get that guy and what would this guy kind of bring you? Would it raise your eyebrow if I tossed this guy into the mix, or if we swapped in the NFL draft and we needed to move up and get this guy? This is where they start to make a little bit of that, what's not supposed to be the legal tampering, the very illegal tampering. But the cool thing about it is, and I did not realize this, it just dawned on me the other day. I was listening to, I don't know who's on the NFL Network talking about it. Maybe it was Mike Mayock. But it was, because the NFL, if there's ever a tampering charge, nobody ever wants to be the guy that has a phone number or a text message or an email or anything like that in their phone or in their computer. This is where there aren't any text messages or emails. You're here face to face. You're in person. So it's hey, there's no paper trail. There's no text trail. There's no phone trail. Let's go over here in a corner real quick and talk about this or lay this down. Or, you start to hear through the grapevine through an agent that's here with a couple of prospects, and, they start talking and, hey, what about this guy? And then he runs to another guy. So this is the time when things like that kind of start to matriculate. If you're a team that wants to make a move or that it feels like it's going to be on the move, this is the time that things start to kind of happen. So that's why it's so imperative that after I get off the air today, I start to head out and do kind of a mix and mingle, but just blend into the nothingness, sit in a chair somewhere and keep your ears open and talk to a few people and see what happens. So who knows? Maybe you hear something, maybe you hear nothing. But this was, like I said, last year, sitting at Nikki Blaine's and having a cigar, and next thing you know, we're surrounded by, I think it was at 1.6 or 7 general managers, and they all start talking, and your eyebrows go up, and you can't believe what you're hearing, and you get a bourbon or two, and the next thing you know, you hear about possible trade rumors, and lo and behold, it was a week later, Deebo Samuel is on his way to the Washington Commanders. So you never know what you're going to find out. You never know what you're going to find out. This was from Mark, who says he wanted to go back to the ticketing issue. He says, can the Packers really do that legally if they start taking tickets away? Won't that create some lawsuits for people that have already paid for that property? It's not your property to resell. That's just it. It's not. You're buying the right to go to a game, and they're with that in their ticketing. If you read all the fine print, there is a codicil in there that basically talks about reselling tickets. Profiting, you can't profit from somebody else's, that'd be like, now I wouldn't necessarily, you'd get more than $1.25 for this show, but say you started recording the show and you took the Bill Michaels show and then you put it on your own platform and you were trying to sell sponsorships to it. You're reselling a product that is not yours. And that, yes, they have the right to take that back. Absolutely, they do. Just like they have the right, like say you get drunk and, they have a right to revoke you from the premises and tell you can no longer come back. Absolutely, they have that right. That's their product. That's not yours. Which is why they tell you any rebroadcast and repurpose and redissemination of, the NFL is without written permission, blah, blah, blah. You can't do it. That's all their product. You are not allowed to sell and or profit off of their product. It used to be, think about this. It used to be back in the day when teams, and I know the Packers did this, because they were doing it when I first got to town back in 1999, when you would put up the word Packers. Like if you were a bar and you said, hey, catch the Packers game, Packers shots during a score, hey, it's free wing Friday or something leading up to the Packers game or anything Packers on your billboard or anything, they could come in and fine you for using the word Packers because you're advertising something that's not yours. That's copyrighted to them. They used to do that years ago. So yeah, I mean that's you can't do that. So yes, to answer your question, they have the absolute right to do that. This was from Steve. Bill, as you know, I'm a gold season ticket holder. We have a primo seats. When we can't attend, we only sell them to family or friends that we trust at the face value. We would never sell them any other way. There is too much risk if you would sell them to somebody that gets thrown out for being unruly or drunk or any other reason. You also stand the chance of having your tickets revoked. We have made sure that when we can't attend any more of those games, the tickets go to our daughter in the writing and in our trust and such. That is our buddy Stephen Richfield. And that's what they're telling you. Like, look, we don't care if you sell your tickets. You can't be putting them consistently on the open market, on the secondary market, and you can't be profiting off of us, and you can't be getting tickets just to make money. You can't do that. Can't do it just to make money. So it's their right. Unfortunately, I mean, I know some people think it sucks, but it's absolutely positively their right. Jimmy says, as a longtime season ticket holder, the people next to us for years have not been attending games. They basically come to 1 or 2 games a year. That's usually during the warm weather months, and after that, they no longer show up. These are the epitome of the people that should no longer have season tickets. While I like them and I appreciate them, it's not even their family members that are attending. Most of the time, it's out-of-towners that are getting a chance to go to Lambeau Field for the first time. While we always enjoy showing off what we have and our pride and joy that is Lambeau Field and telling them about the surrounding areas, we also have found that over the years it's been rather unruly from some of the fans that have shown up and cheered for their team or just simply cheered against the Green Bay Packers. It is not fun to sit next to these type of fans on a continual basis. You'd rather have Packers fans cheering with you than someone there just to cheer against you and to also be as rowdy or rowdier than most of our fans in our own stands. It becomes rather disappointing when people are profiting off the Green Bay Packers. We are a true fan. We've had 6 generations of family members having season tickets at Lambeau Field, and we don't intend to give them up anytime soon. We would never sell them on the secondary market. We always give them away to friends if we simply can't go. I've only missed 2 games over the last 27 years. And trust me, we've seen a lot of different fans come and go in that time. Go Pack, go. That's from Jimmy. Jimmy, appreciate the email. And that's that. You see, you're not the person the Packers are looking for. The people that next to you are the ones that the Packers are looking for. That's what they're looking for. 877-867-1670. By the way, also, If you want to text us, you can. 608-321-1670, 608-321-1670. You can find us there. Yeah, AJ says Stadium View got busted for exactly what I was describing back in 1998. They got a cease and desist letter. And they used to do that. I don't think they do it as much anymore. I don't think they crack down on it as much as they once did. But I know there's, a few friends of mine who are bar owners told me that back, quote, the old, air quotes back in the day that, yeah, if they put something up on their billboard and they said, Packer party or, come here for the Packers game or, Packers versus Bears, whatever. And they would get a letter first. And then if you didn't stop doing it, you could get a fine. You could get a fine. So it's out there. It can happen. Let's see here. What else do we have here? And we got a couple of minutes because they're still over there. I think Goody is wrapping up, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what Goody had to say.
I do have some clips that Goody did. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. At the bottom of the hour here, Bill Huber's going to come over from Sports Illustrated. He's going to come over. Mm-hmm. So let's do this. We'll get Bill Huber. He'll come over. But let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll hear a little bit of what Goody had to say before we get Bill over here. And then we'll talk to Bill in the last half hour of the show. So let's do that. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We got a whole lot more to get to. Brian Gutekunst has just wrapped up speaking. And like I said, Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated, who also had a really good article today in SI about Rasheed Walker. So if you have not seen that, he talks about Rasheed Walker and possibly what he could get on the open market and yada, yada. But yeah, that could be, it's a really good article if you haven't seen it already. But take a look at it if you haven't seen it. We'll get into that discussion with him as well. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more of the Bill Michaels Show broadcasting live here in Indianapolis, Indiana, inside the convention center. This portion of our program brought to you by our good friends over there at Stoley's Hog Alley, which is a fantastic place for a fish fry. They've got that salted rye bread, man, and not many places have that. They do. They got it at both Stoley's Hog Alley and Stoley's on 109. It's fantastic with a fish fry. If you've never had it, potato pancakes and the applesauce that goes with it, and then obviously the fish fry. Oh, it's so good. So good. Great burgers, pizza during the rest of the week, fish fry on the Friday nights, great atmosphere, seating both inside and outside during the summer months when they open up the garage doors and the bands show up, and they just got such good stuff and such great owners. Stoley's Hog Alley on Venice Beach Road in Oconomowoc, that is Lake Country. Stoll's Old 109 on County Road R in Watertown, and that is a fantastic location as well. Stay tuned. We're going to hear a little bit from Brian Gutekunst coming up, Bill Huber coming up bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. We got more after this.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. The Bill Michaels Show. We are live here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And just wrapped up. Brian Gutekunst just wrapping up this portion of our program, by the way, brought to you by our friends at MIBA, M-I-B-A, MIBA Industrial Bearings. And they are all over the country. If you did not know that, they're in our own backyard. The recruiting happens in Wisconsin. But they get people with resumes from all over the country. And if you're looking for a gig, say in Kansas, or if you're looking for one in Texas, they can help you out because God knows we've got listeners everywhere. Just give them a call, 262-337-2210, 262-337-2210. MIBA Industrial Bearings, M-I-B-A, M as in Michael, I-B-A, MIBA Industrial Bearings in Grafton, Wisconsin. You can search them on Indeed, I-N-D-E-E-D, Indeed, and you can find them there and get a chance to give them a shout and maybe get yourself an occupation if you want to. Indeed, I-N-D-D-E-E-D. So first and foremost, we were talking a little bit earlier before we went to break about, Brian Gutekunst. And so Gutekunst talked a little bit about Micah Parsons, Tucker Kraft, both coming back from injuries. This is what he had to say.
There's so much crossover between the guys that we have in college and pro and how we handle things, and they've been around for a long time. So the new areas that they may jump into because John Eric's not here, they probably already have to some extent, and they're very well versed in that.
How did Will Redmond get on your radar?
A bunch of our college scouts had been through, whether it was LSU or Auburn, where he's been working and had a relationship there. They were very high, spoke very highly of him, and he was going to, regardless, going to do some stuff with us this spring. And then it just kind of, as he did, it just kind of, made some sense to bring him in. I think he's going to be a really good asset to our group.
When you look at this draft class, what position groups do you see where there's a lot of strength, a lot of depth?
Yeah, still working through it a little bit, but the numbers in the offensive line seem to be up quite a bit. I think this particular, and we saw a little bit last year, we'll probably see a little bit next year, but through the end of the COVID years and the transfer portal, we got a lot. We're kind of finishing up a lot of the 5, 6, 7 year guys. So some of the bigger man positions, there's just a bunch of guys that have developed, maybe didn't play their first 3 years and played the last 2 or 3. Some older guys in that group. So certainly in the offensive line and the defensive line, we've seen some of that. But the numbers across the board look pretty good. I think it's a good draft. Certainly there's going to be a number of opportunities to help us.
When it comes to international games, what did you think of what the Vikings did last year with like a doubleheader, Ireland, London? Would the Packers ever be open to Germany and London or something like that?
I don't know if we have a whole lot of choice in that. No, I think I've talked about it before. As an organization, we have to be, really, really good at traveling abroad and playing those games. I don't think we've had a ton of success over there. So we have to get back to that, or not back. We have to get to a point where we're really, really comfortable going over there and winning football games. And so, for me, that just means you got to be excited about it. And, you have to make sure that your process is tight and continue to evolve because I think it's just going to be more,
Brian, you mentioned you joked around about Micah's rehab and stuff like that, but how much improvement comes from within, whether it's Micah or Tucker or guys like that are true leaders on your team?
Yeah, our 2026 will be defined mostly by that, right? The guys that are already here, and what they do to get better and better our football team. And I'm excited about that because I really do like the group of guys we have in that locker room. There's some guys that are really, they're coming into the best years of their career. They've got a lot of experience under their belt now. We're a seasoned team, and I think right now what we have to do is we have to be able to get in those moments that we struggled with the last 2 years and finish them off. And I'm excited about that.
What does Micah nickname you often? What does Micah nickname you often?
I won't keep that.
But they're both doing well as far as what you can see and what you can tell and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You mentioned scouting first round guys, even without the first round pick, if for nothing else for down the road. If there was someone that you came across that you really coveted this year who you expected to go in that range, would you be willing to make a move to get back up in there? And do you have what it takes to do that?
Yeah, I think it would take a significant amount of resources to get back up and to the first round. But if that player was available and that made sense to us, we'd never shy away from that. I wouldn't expect that to happen. Usually, the areas of the first round we could get into would be more towards the back half, and so I wouldn't expect it. But if the right player fell, then we'll be aggressive about it.
That said, with the draft, if you have to wait.
So there you go. That was part of what Brian Gutekunst had to say, and then he was specifically asked about what is it going to take to go from a regular season playoff qualifier to a Super Bowl contender legitimately.
About this, our ability to be more consistent in situational football and finishing off games. A number of our games the past couple of years, we've been up in the games and just not been able to close them out. And our group's we got to get to that point, So I think we're on our way there. I really like the guys in our locker room, and I like the makeup of our team. But that's an area that we have to fix. Yeah, I think.
So there you go. That was, a quick discussion regarding that. Joining me here at the table, Mike Clemens, now after the discussion with Goody, both privately and at the podium. So what did you make of it?
And Brian's, he's just not going to show his hand.
Yeah.
Sometimes they haven't made decisions. A year ago at this time, we were talking about Jair Alexander.
Right.
Whether they're going to bring him back. And I told you then, I don't think so. But I had some people say from the organization, that was his first pick.
Yeah.
First round pick. So you think he's going to wait. He's going to give Jair one more chance. Well, then things got kind of messy in terms of them asking Jair for the pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
Other things were going on. Plus, they knew how bad that knee was, and he was gone. And then Brian came out to us at some kind of an OTA or something and talked to us. And we had fans that said, no, see, he's still coming back. You guys have got it wrong. No, I can read this guy.
Yeah.
Listen to him.
Right.
And we've been with him off the air and on the air. They've moved on. They want this guy to have worked. They think can be tremendous, but they've moved on. And what happened? He went to the Ravens and they were draining his knee.
Yeah.
And,
never really had a season.
Poor
he was
guy.
Pretty much done.
He's got, the chronic knee problems now. And then he ended up retiring himself, after being traded to another team. So I'm just saying, coming from that experience, I would say that Rashawn Gary will probably be back.
You think so?
Because he'll just say, hey, 60 pressures, 7.5 sacks. That's a pretty good season period. Well, then what happened with the last 5 games?
Right.
Why 0 after that? And he kind of hems and haws around and talks about, there was different circumstances and there was some consistency there. So, we still don't know if there's a story there of some kind that how come Micah Parsons goes down and then this guy doesn't seem to step up. Lucas Van Ness is tragic. They thought he was doing great. And it's a shame that he lost those games with that foot injury.
Right.
And so he made that clear today. And, that's a guy that they're looking forward to. I have a feeling Rashawn will be back. Keyshawn Nixon is openly has said I think I deserve a raise. He said that on cleaning out the lock days, and he just kind of laughed. Yeah, well, they all do,
Right.
So
well, the guys from Super Sports rated him pretty high.
But the general manager of the Green Bay Packers said today, yeah, we need some help in the secondary.
Yeah. So he was he basically. You can say Keyshawn Nixon had a good season. Is he a cornerback? Is he CB cover 1 on press? No, but he's a good corner, and he doesn't mind hitting. Carrington Valentine, on the other hand, if you can pick him up and throw him out of the way, you can have a clean shot at the Super Bowl and running past him and scoring points and taking your team as far as they can possibly go. I do like Evan Williams. He rated out really high. We were talking to the guys from Sumer Sports when they were going through the whole list.
Oh, and you had him on the show in San Francisco.
Yeah, and they like Keyshawn Nixon. They said, look, is he one of your top corners in the league? No, he's not a shutdown guy, but he plays really well for what they ask him to do. But they said, yeah, you need everybody knows they need help in the secondary.
Okay, and I'll reveal this now. You're playing the Bears in that playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tight game. And even though you're up, you know that any little thing can start turning the page, turning the momentum of the game. Packers had the Bears stopped. There's a cluster of players over the ball, and then Keyshawn Nixon jumps into the pool
over the top of the pile.
Gets an unnecessary roughness. I think is what they call it.
15-yard penalty.
But it's like Bears first down, and the general manager of the Green Bay Packers
was not happy.
Slammed his fist onto the table in frustration and expletive after that because come on,
right?
And Keyshawn Nixon does that. He's got that joy. He's got that fun, that spirit, that fight, and everything. So does Carrington Valentine. But these guys do that once or twice a game, and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it's the as John Cooten likes to call the hidden yardage.
Yeah.
So then he I like the fact that he had talked about Rashawn Gary. I want to go back to that because what are they going to do with his salary? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It just seems to me like they want to figure out a way to make that work.
Right.
I'm going to guess that Jonathan Gannon's in favor of keeping him.
Yeah.
And I think they probably want to start the season with him because Micah is not going to be 100%.
Right.
Opening day kickoff. I think that's part of it. And quickly on the offensive line, what about the center position? Will Elton Jenkins be back? Tough injury. They thought he's a pretty good veteran leader. I think he called him. But Sean Ryan improved.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Sean Ryan maybe got a B- or so like that for a grade at filling in at center. But I think there might be an open competition for that job as well.
Let's do this. Stay here, and we're going to bring in our buddy Bill Huber as well to sit alongside. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and stay right where you're at because we're going to continue to discuss what Brian Gutekunst had to say today at the podium. We got more coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Truck drivers, are you tired of your pay not matching your experience? At Schneider, our truck driver pay is designed so your years of service directly translate to higher earnings. Plus, longtime drivers qualify for larger sign-on bonuses and a larger selection of driving jobs. Pick from drive-in, intermodal, tanker, and dedicated opportunities. Ready to be rewarded for your hard work and expertise? Find the right driving job for you at SchneiderJobs.com. That's SchneiderJobs.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
So, right? Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I think my mic was. We are glad you are back. Welcome. Bill Michaels Show. We're live here in Indianapolis. If you, I hope you never do, but if you need an attorney, Levine Iceburner, Brent Iceburner, fantastic guy. He's a veteran. He brings the same attention to detail to the courtroom, also to the attention detail of your case, whatever that may be, whether it's personal injury, estate planning, civil litigation. Just a terrific, terrific guy. Also on the board of directors of Fisher House, Wisconsin, which is how I met him. And he just is a fantastic human being. But more so than anything, he's one of the attorneys in the state of Wisconsin that actually answers the phone, actually builds a relationship with you. And hey, by the way, they actually go to court. How about that? Not just a face, but more so a guy that actually rolls up his sleeve and does the work. That's our friends at Levine Iceburner. Call them direct, 608-621-2888, 621-2888. Levine Ice Burner. Give him a shout. Tell him we sent you. Joining us here at the table, Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated. Mike Clemens alongside our Packers reporter, long time covering the Green Bay Packers. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Mike in the last segment, and that is, you listen to Goody now, and what did you take away?
He says a lot of words, Bill. I don't know. I don't know if he said anything of substance. I do think the door is open for Rashawn Gary to come back. You got to be smart about it. I mean, Micah Parsons, when's he going to come back, and when's he going to be Micah Parsons, and Agbar is a free agent. So you can't go into the season with Lucas Van Ness and Colin Oliver and Barron Sorrell as your defensive ends. So I would think, but if he's coming back or Jenkins is coming back, it has to be on a new contract, and you got to get that worked out. The player has to agree to it too. It's obviously a two-sided street. So a lot of hoops up in the air, and that starts here. I mean, he gets done talking to us. He's probably going to go talk to a bunch of agents tonight and kind of start getting that stuff hammered out.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you do with Rashawn Gary's contract? Because between him and Elton Jenkins, you can save over almost $34 million.
Right, which makes you think that they'll just kind of wash their hands of it. I just don't think it's maybe quite cut and dried. If you don't have a center, and your defensive end depth would be pretty precarious. So I could see an outside chance that they can revamp those things.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, with Jenkins' contract, like, if he was playing really good, the obvious solution is you give him a contract extension.
Right.
And then you get to lower the cap number and you get him for a few years. But he's 30 years old, coming off an injury, and they talked about him being an all-pro caliber center, and that just never panned out.
Well, that was just it. He's not an all-pro caliber center. He's an all-pro, but it was at the guard position, not at the center position. And, Mike, you had said that he kind of thought about Sean Ryan, saying Sean Ryan got better as the season went along, which, you know what, the offensive line became more solidified when Elton Jenkins went out, unfortunately, and Sean Ryan took over the center position. But is he your starting center going into next season?
I think so, but certainly they're clearly aware that they need a backup at that position.
Which, because Jacob Monk didn't even get a look.
Hasn't.
Yeah, until week 18, he played pretty well for one game, and whatever that's worth.
Yeah, right. and then just when the door is open for him to get some snaps, then he's got an injury as well. In terms of Sean Ryan, the way he described it was to say, he's kind of thrown in there. All right. And even though he had been taking snaps, everybody, has to learn 2 or 3 positions, that it was a kind of a thing that they thought he was doing a nice job in terms of the progress he made. So, it wasn't like he was, an A1 grade as the season went on. So close enough. But, overall, they just know that as a unit, the offensive line, was not dominating toward the end. It's just not dominating. Defensively, I thought this was an interesting question because you guys were talking about Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons coming back from the torn ACL. Oh, by the way, he had something funny just in terms of dealing with Micah as a personality. And he said, you talking to Micah? He says, yeah, and then how soon can he come back? And what was that, Bill, what he called him about? No, he says.
Yeah, the no man.
Yeah. Micah calls his general manager, oh, yeah, there goes the no man, because all he does is say no.
Right.
So then we get him on camera for that. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. So we don't have that.
No, we don't have that one.
We don't have that. Yeah, we're just passing along like that. So why
does he call him the no man?
Because he's Micah Parsons. Because he's the 800-pound. He's the elephant in the room, man. He's the guy.
Right.
There's an aura about him. He reeks of leadership. No one asks more about this guy than him, and he's constantly competing and and challenging himself and challenging anybody around him and in the room, and he's a force. He's just an absolute force. We are lucky. We're watching I'm already calling it. This guy's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
If he can come back from this knee injury, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. The persona's that. But you guys talk about, Rashawn Gary, JJ Enagbari, could be a free agent and, could get way more money than what Green Bay wants to pay for him, although he's done some nice progression. But Barron Sorrell, toward the end of the season, he showed some flash and some depth there. And here's a key point where you got a new defensive coordinator.
Right.
So is Jonathan Gannon going to be a 3-4 guy? Is he going to be a 4-3 guy? And I think it was Goody said, or it's a 4-2-5. So, it's like, hey, we're going to have all kinds of changes like this, and so you've got to be versatile. You got to be thinking about a 4-man rush and a deep secondary on second and third down if you're going against Caleb Williams, right? We got to be able to get to that quarterback with a maximum of 4 guys to speed up the clock, but we got to flood the field so the quarterback feels like he's got nowhere to go with the football.
You made the comment that he talked about the secondary, and Bill, so last year they took a big swing with Nate Hobbs. They went after Banks. Neither really played stellar football for them, but Hobbs had this knee scope early on, going all the way back to camp, never seemed to really get into the rhythm. They're going to have to get another secondary guy or 2, you would assume, correct?
Yeah, he flat out said that. That's one position where they got to get better. Listening to some of the draft experts, Daniel Jeremiah had a conference call the other day, and he thought corner was a really strong group, so that's going to help him out, but I mean, goodness gracious. They haven't drafted their last 3 drafts have had nothing but 7th-round picks, and they signed Nate Hobbs to $48 million. It wasn't any good. I mean, maybe he'll be fine if he's healthy, but here's the guy. I mean, he was always, I should say always, that's wrong. But the last 3 years at the Raiders, he missed a significant amount of time. So then you go give the guy $48 million. Look, an injured guy gets injured. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, who would have figured that out?
They got it. They
became as advertised.
Yeah,
hard-hitting dude. A couple of assists, but you get 4 games a year out of him, maybe.
Right.
And they kind of like Kamal Haddon, who was making some progress, and he gets hurt at the end of the year. So they've got some significant problems there to address.
They have how much depth? Because I think we could all agree that Keyshawn Nixon, and even going over the analytics with the guys from Sumer, Keyshawn Nixon played well. He's not a shutdown corner. They like, even the backup, Zane Anderson in the secondary. They like Javon Bullard in the secondary, but
Carrington Valentine,
yes. I mean, 1 minute he's making a tremendous, pass defense, and the next minute he's getting thrown to the ground by somebody that wants to run over him or past him because he has no tackling capability. They've got a okay secondary if you've got a great defensive front, but if you don't have a defensive front, you've got a very poor secondary, and that showed as the season wore on.
Yeah, Micah Parsons goes down, they don't win again. There's your cause, Bill,
and effect.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly as plain as day.
So I talked to Goodikins about that today, toward the end.
Yeah,
and I just said, that Denver game, it was like a vacuum in that locker room. Players were like, "How bad is Micah Parsons?"
Mm-hmm.
And the way they got beat by the Broncos, and Goody said, "Yeah, and we were up by 9 in that game."
Yep.
And we were up, by this much in that game after that. And, the next 5 games that they lost, they were up and the game slipped away.
Right.
So I said, what I was trying to convey to him is I know that you analyze this stuff, the coaching, the team leaders, the players, what's on the tape. I know that he wants to know everything that's going on in that room and how it feels. And he came back with not a short answer, but said, it's consistency. And it's how come if you take one of those 2 players, I just still can't find 1 or 2 others that rise to the occasion, that make the play.
That's why we talk about Rashawn Gary, because he was the guy that, Mike, you said in Denver, gathered guys to say, we got to step up, and then never showed up after that.
Right, and then after that, inexplicable why, and Goodikins said today, well, it gets more complicated as why he didn't have sacks, the rest of the way. But it's still, it's not like the quarterback, went nuts. It's not like there was somebody else that just stepped up and came out of nowhere. Maybe one kid like a Bo Melton steps up and then he gets a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
So it's like, how come I still can't get 1 or 2 other guys to step forward? And Josh Jacobs, he was lucky to be on the field, so he couldn't, come through with you and win a game with the running game.
Right.
But that was the part that, where he recognizes that in those last 5 games, these are Tucker Kraft and Micah are great players, but how come I can't see some guys say, here's my opportunity, I'm taking a shot at it, and I'm going to make a blocked field goal or an interception, or I'm going to make a game-changing play.
The guy that you hoped would have stepped up would have been a guy like Xavier McKinney with the experience, and Evan Williams, who shined this year, I thought played extremely well. They just didn't have, to me, it all starts up front. They just, once Devontae Wyatt went down, they didn't have a guy in the middle. They didn't have anybody really strongly coming off the edge. I thought Lucas Van Ness had some flashes. As a matter of fact, against Chicago, he was the only highlight defensively in that ball game. They just didn't have that. I want to go back to what you talked about with Josh Jacobs. When I was sitting there talking to the analytics people, they said last year, not this past season, but the prior season, he was getting hit at 1.3 to 2 yards downfield on average. This year, he was getting hit 2 yards in the backfield. So you're talking about a 4-yard swing. So when you look at the average and people say, well, he had it down here, he doesn't look the same. Well, the guy was also getting hit in the backfield quite a bit, which goes back to your discussion when we were talking about, well, is Elton Jenkins coming back? He's an all-pro guard. Banks certainly wasn't an all-pro. Is Sean Ryan going to be the center? They got to figure out the run game with the offensive line because that's where it all starts is up front.
There's some games that I watched the second time where my sense was Josh Jacobs was, why in the hell did we call that play with that formation?
Yeah.
Because this is the third time we've run it against that look on the defense. And what made you think that we were going to have any leverage and change? Why couldn't you have brought the tight end over? Why couldn't you trapped or done it to flip to the other side where there's a weaker guy? But, I sensed that there was some play calling for Josh Jacobs where he's like, before the ball snaps, he's like, this ain't going to work. Well, let's try again.
Well, even the Bears said at one point they saw what was coming. They saw the run coming. They knew it was coming.
You're right.
They could tell. So, that's more on Matt LaFleur than it is on Josh Jacobs or the offensive line.
Yeah, although I think every team probably plays like that. I mean, I'm sure the Packers go up and, the Bears ran stuff when they know exactly what's coming. So, I mean, I remember Jacobs was hoping that he had like a Saquon Barkley type of season where in 2024 when Barkley led the league, he had so many yards before contact. And then the Packers go out and sign Banks and they move Jenkins.
Right.
And he was so optimistic that was going to be the new running game, that this big, powerful front was going to be able to create openings and he'd be able to get 2 yards downfield. And then he's got a head of steam. He can break more tackles. And to your numbers there before, it just kind of went the opposite way. He was just stopped dead in his tracks half the time.
I also go back to training camp. Look, Rasheed Walker had the pulled groin. He didn't participate. Banks was then nicked up. Those two guys never played together until like week 4 or week 5. Then you had Elton Jenkins go down. Sean Ryan move over. Jordan Morgan is trying to mix and match with Sean Ryan. You had Zach Tom, who had the oblique, and then God knows what all they call it because it was the whole side of his body was basically dead. Then we find out the patellar tendon at the end of the season. It never got any continuity on that offensive front all season long. So I get it. Maybe if they do, maybe things will get better. But that's a whole lot of maybes, hope, and prayer, which is to me, I think with this draft being a little bit better when it comes specifically to the center position, I would assume they're going to take an offensive lineman or two to get some depth and hopefully get some consistency this year.
And then one other category, special teams.
Well,
field position.
That's the hidden field position that we didn't even talk about.
I mean, I think someone needs to sit the play caller down and say, really? 4th and 1 from the 34?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? In an important game, what are you doing?
Right.
And then you watch the Super Bowl, and the 2 Super Bowl teams are playing field position for the first 3 quarters of that game.
Right.
And you've got one of the best punters. I go back to that Ron Wolf era thing where it says every drive ends with a kick.
Yeah.
So, use your damn punter because you haven't shown proclivity to be able to do this on 4th and 1 or 4th and 7 or whatever.
Right.
The play calls like that. Rich Bisaccia just made what appears to be a personal decision. Probably was wavering on whether or not it's going to happen. When it happened, it seems to have been a bit of a surprise. I think he was welcome to come back.
Did he talk about that?
Yes, and this is the impression that I got in talking to the general manager today. They wanted him back, and Bisaccia was, waffling at what was going to happen. And so then I asked him, can I ask you a question? So, Rich, you guys put out this announcement at 6:30 on a Tuesday night that the special teams coordinator is stepping down and looks forward to what's next in his future.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, it's like after 4 years, this guy just wants to shake the Etch-a-Sketch and, change the scenery because he's not sure what he can do and whatever led up to that decision.
Sure.
Yeah, Goody flat out said he was looking for other opportunities for Rich. So, and you saw the press release. There's no much.
So Goody's looking for other opportunities.
No, Bisaccia.
Bisaccia is looking
for other opportunities to get out of Green Bay.
Gutekunst said, yeah.
So he's got this assistant he's had for the last couple of years, this Byron Storr, right?
Yeah.
Who 2 days before has interviewed and now has accepted the special teams coordinator job with the Cleveland Browns. So, if you're saying to me, or you're saying to Grant, hey, Grant, I don't know, another couple of months, I might give the show up. Would you like the show? No, it's like Grant decides to move on to some other market where, he can have his own show or something. And then you decide to quit. Like, why would you let that guy in? And Brian seemed to indicate when I asked him about that, like, these guys, they move on, they take their best opportunities.
Did it blindside him, do you think?
Did it blindside Bisaccia?
No, did it blindside Goody and Matt?
No, I think by that time, that's about the 6th or 7th coach that has walked out the door. And Gannon's coming in with a whole new staff.
Let's do this. I'm late for a break. Hang on, because I got questions regarding all this. Stay tuned. We got more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. We're live in Indianapolis, Indiana. The Bill Michaels Show here inside the Convention Center. It is 2026's version of the NFL Combine. Joining me here at the table, got alongside Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated. Also, Mike Clemens is here with us as well. So I want to go back to where we left off because Rich Bisaccia leaves and says, I'm going to search for other opportunities. Mike, you would talk to me a little bit about after the game down in Chicago. He's hugging guys and tears and the whole thing. The reports come out that, well, he's leaving because he failed Matt and this and that. And
I don't think it's a matter of anybody jumping ship. I think everybody that took a job and out of the coaching staff moved up. It wasn't like lateral moves or anything like that. People aren't bailing on the Packers because they don't want to be here anymore. I think it was just opportunities presented themselves. So to the Bisaccia side of things, like you said, Bill, maybe he just wanted a year off. Just maybe it was just time to say, let me breathe a little bit or something like that.
He's 65 years old. He's been in coaching for forever.
Yeah.
He's earned the opportunity. I realized that he wasn't great at what he did in Green Bay, but people flat out loved him.
Yeah.
And at 65, you know what? Go take a year off and maybe give it another shot here somewhere. So they'll find someone, and it's probably a good idea, no matter who the coach is, Bill.
Right.
After 4 years, they get some fresh ideas, a fresh vision, a fresh voice in there. I mean, that's fine.
And the hiring from within, Mike, like you said, look, Bisaccia, what he was doing wasn't working, whatever the special teams was, whether it was the personnel or whatever, but just maybe a different set of eyes, a fresh idea, somebody outside of the organization to come in and say, okay, let's change this up a little bit. Let's move guys around, whatever. Just the different usage of what they have right now to their personnel, maybe with a different set of ideas, make special teams better.
Well, you're the special teams coordinator and assistant head coach, right? And you're there to, help out this young Matt LaFleur, right?
Right.
And teach him the ways of the league. And then Jeff Hafley moves on and gets a head coaching job with the Dolphins. And maybe there's a little bit of jealousy there because also Bisaccia's been asked over the last couple of years, hey, you were interim and the Raiders, guys will play for you.
Right.
Don't you think maybe there's still a chance for you to be a Bruce Arians? If you get with the right team, you might be able to take a team to the Super Bowl. And he would downplay that because he was going to remain loyal to Matt LaFleur.
Right.
That's the head coach over there. But today, so, all right, you ask Gutekunst, did he put you in kind of a bind? 38 days after.
Right.
Mike McCarthy has not only been hired, he's got his whole staff ready to go in Pittsburgh, and guys are still, playing with your food, looking for. And Gutekunst said, we're okay. He said, we'll get this going. But that's not a rush. And Matt can take his time to get that special teams coordinator as we get into the draft. So they're not in any big hurry.
We got about 30 seconds, but anybody tripping the trigger special teams wise and the names that you've heard coming into Green Bay?
Devin Fitzsimmons. I know he's interviewed once. I know, and I don't know who the second interview list is, but that has begun. He was the assistant in Seattle last year. In my special teams rankings, Seahawks finished third.
Yeah. So
they were really good across the board.
If he brings that to Green Bay, we'll all be happy again.
If they can get the 13th, people would be happy. If they get the 23rd.
Anything higher than 21 would be better at this point, without a doubt. Day one is in the books. How about that? So, Bill, you're back to Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, basketball, then family vacation.
There you go, family vacation. Mike, you and I, you're going to hang out with Grant for a while, and then Skyline Chili tonight.
I'm there.
In one bathroom in a house with 3 dudes. So, how we looking?
Get out of there.
How we looking? So, it's been our pleasure. Thanks for hanging out with us.